Good afternoon, and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Public Housing, joint with the Committee on Civil Service and Labor. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. If you wish to submit testimony, you may at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Just a reminder, no one may approach the dais at any point during this hearing. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
This meeting is coming to order. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this joint hearing of the Committee on Public Housing and the Committee on Civil Service and Labor. I am Councilmember Alexa Aviles, and I chair the Committee on Public Housing. I'd like to thank you all for attending this oversight hearing to examine NYCHA's resident hiring programs and their compliance with Section 3 mandates. We are joined by my colleagues Carmen de la Rosa, Councilmember Nurse, Councilmember Menon, and Councilmember Hanks. Do we have anybody online? Okay. So this topic is one where we see the broad impact NYCHA has on our city beyond the core mission of providing housing for low-income New Yorkers. Under Section 3 requirements, NYCHA must direct economic opportunity to low and very low-income persons to the greatest extent possible. Under the current federal rules, the aim is to have 25% of the project hours in hiring and contracting to be directed to a Section 3 worker. In the simplest terms, NYCHA is under mandate from the federal government to direct jobs and contracts to NYCHA residents and other low-income New Yorkers. The reality of New York having the largest public housing entity in the country means that New York also has the ability to use the massive buying power of NYCHA to take advantage of the skills and talents of NYCHA residents and other low-income New Yorkers. In the past, it has been unclear how many NYCHA residents and other New Yorkers have been able to take advantage of these opportunities. In 2009, the last time the council held a hearing on this topic, we heard that there were many success stories and over 5,700 NYCHA residents had been helped through NYCHA's Section 3 programs. At the same time, numbers posted on NYCHA's website and press reports featuring FOIL documents NYCHA submitted to HUD showed that many years NYCHA failed to meet the Section 3 goals in either hiring or contracting. And most certainly over the years, we have also heard from tenants on a range of experiences, often showing first hired, first fired, seeing the lowest wage jobs, no managerial opportunities, and actually very shady contractor experiences. So these numbers were all prior to the Trump administration changes, which also lessened the requirements. All of this points to the fact that we need clearer and more definitive answers on how NYCHA is using the jobs it hires for and the money it spends to empower NYCHA residents and other low-income New Yorkers. We are looking to learn how many residents NYCHA Section 3 programs are helping and how many NYCHA resident-led businesses are being given contracts. While it is understandable that these programs will not always succeed, we must always strive to make them more accessible, more effective, and more used by NYCHA residents and other New Yorkers. I'm particularly interested to know how NYCHA is making sure that the large amounts of work and not insignificant amounts of money are being spent under the RAD PAC and Comp Mod programs are not simply being used to perform desperately needed repairs, but also that they're helping residents and other New Yorkers build wealth and opportunities to provide for their families. I would like to thank my staff, Christina Bottego, Edward Cerna, James Niemeister, along with the Public Housing Committee staff, Jose Conde, Ricky Chaula, and Connor Mealy, as well as Madeline Martinez, who is interning with the Council from Brooklyn Law School this semester, for all their work in putting this hearing together. In keeping with the tradition of this committee, before we hear from NYCHA, we will hear first from a panel of residents. But before that, I'm happy to turn it over to my colleague, Chair Carmen de la Rosa of the Civil Service and Labor Committee for her opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I am Councilmember Carmen de la Rosa, Chair of the Committee on Civil Service and Labor. Thank you for joining today's hearing on residential hiring and Section 3 requirements. At today's hearing, we will conduct rigorous oversight over Section 3 resident hiring requirements and examine what more can be done to ensure that NYCHA residents receive the employment, training, and contracting opportunities that they are entitled to under federal regulation. I want to recognize we've also been joined by Councilmember Ari Kagan. Section 3 has its origins in the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968, an achievement of the Civil Rights era. The law sought not only to provide low-income people with housing, but to give them jobs building and maintaining those homes, the key goal enshrined in Section 3. As the city recovers from the economic devastation of the pandemic, Section 3 should be utilized as a tool to aid public housing residents in need. In 2021, the Community Service Society estimated that some 22% of public housing residents were unemployed. And in December, we learned that 73,000, or 46% of the city's public housing households, are behind in their rent. Section 3 hiring is urgently needed to help residents find work and stable career paths. This is why I am deeply disappointed that the numbers posted on NYCHA's website and the documents NYCHA submitted to HUD show that the agency has failed to meet their Section 3 goals in both hiring and contracting. I am also concerned how the Trump administration's rule change will impact the agency's ability to meet their hiring goals. My objective today is to learn how we can improve and promote NYCHA's employment training programs, including NYCHA's Resident Training Academy and the Office of Resident Economic Empowerment and Sustainability, to successfully connect residents to jobs. Additionally, I look forward to discussing what more NYCHA can do to advertise union opportunities to residents. At previous hearings, it's been unclear how residents and qualified New Yorkers can take advantage of NYCHA's workforce development programming. As the country's largest public housing agency, NYCHA has the power to utilize Section 3 hiring to set a national example by ensuring that jobs they create go to deserving low-income residents. Let's make sure we make the most of this opportunity. I'd also like to take a moment to thank committee staff for their hard work in preparing for this hearing, Policy Analyst Elizabeth Arts, as well as my Chief of Staff James Burke, and Legislative Director Kiana Diaz, and Communications Director Freynet Familia. Thank you.
Before we jump in, I'd like to acknowledge we've been joined by Councilmember Barron and Councilmember Moya online and Councilmember Osei. Thank you.
We'll now call a pre-panel of NYCHA residents with 3 in-person witnesses and 1 on Zoom. If I call your name, could you come up to the table to the right? Ms. Niani Taylor, Mr. Cornell Robinson, and Mr. Robert Wells. And we will have Mr. Danny Barber on Zoom after the in-person witnesses complete their testimony. Ms. Taylor, if you'd like to begin.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Niani Taylor. I am a resident of Van Dyke Houses in Brooklyn, and I graduated from NYCHA Reese Food Business Pathways in August 2015. Through my passion for cooking and wanting to change from my corporate career, I started my catering company, Munch Hours, Inc., in October 2015 after completing the Food Business Pathways program, and I received my first order for business in February 2016. Food Business Pathways helped support my idea of being a food business owner by paying for my New York State business registration, providing classes, business coaching, and relevant resources. As a Section 3 business concern, I am a registered vendor with NYCHA's iSupplier vendor portal. I also benefited from the market access opportunities offered by Reese's Food Pathways program, which included being a food vendor at Governor's Island, Brooklyn Navy Yard, Grow NYC, I do Thanksgiving meals for NYCHA residents that are without power. I'm also funded by the Mayor's Task Force of Racial Inclusion and Equity that hires Food Business Pathways graduates to provide meals for residents without gas. Yes. And because I was a Governor's Island vendor, I was selected to provide small plate dishes for the Friends of Governor's Island fundraiser. So that was in 2021. So even now, after all these years post-graduation, NYCHA's Reese team still continues to provide me with business resources, market access opportunities to help me grow my business, and they also give me like exquisite advertisement and marketing publicity. So I've been MWB certified since 2020. And I was one of the meals selected to provide meals for workers at a COVID site through Department of Health and Mental Services, Health and Mental Hygiene. Additionally, the city can ensure the timeline to pay vendors faster. While I appreciate the city's contract to provide meals, it took a long time for me to be paid and to get a loan to bridge the gap between providing the meals and waiting for the city to pay me set me back financially, in addition to COVID's quarantine conditions. So one of the things that's been very challenging for me is finding affordable commercial kitchen space. New York City requires food business owners to cook in a commercial kitchen that's been approved and inspected by New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And, pardon me, I received a kitchen scholarship when I started the business in a commercial kitchen incubator space. It was called Brooklyn Food Works, but then I moved to kitchen in the South Bronx, and that kitchen has been under renovation, and so now I'm in a kitchen called Mangrove in Brooklyn. And so I must do this to find an affordable space so that I can make a profit. And so many food vendors continue to cook out of their homes because with so many, the cost of rent commercial space to pay for the business and business insurance that requires the cook to cook in the commercial kitchen is often too costly for small businesses, and I'll just attest to that. To be, I guess, behind on rent but trying to keep up with the business cost is pretty much a dichotomy that keeps me anxiety and worried. But NYCHA has been very, very much supportive, and I would like to continue their support and to keep encouraging the program. So thank you.
Next, we'll have Mr. Wells.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, I'm a Section 3 resident from Ingersoll Housing. I got in the program in 2016. And before I got in the union, they was paying me under the table. So I reported to 250 Broadway. And right now, I really want to know what's going on because nobody is getting back to me. Another thing, we don't have a lot of opportunities for NYCHA residents. It's not fair to have a lot of outsiders here coming to our neighborhood, and they treating us like give us an opportunity. So Section 3 put me in the program. I get hurt on the job. I calls the union. I call NYCHA. Nobody cares. Nobody know nothing. So now I just don't know what to do. Now the job forced me to come back to work. So I'm not a company man. So if I was a company man, you should have been called me back to work. Don't wait 7 to 8 months to call me back. So it don't make no sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Robinson.
Good afternoon. My name is Cornel Robinson. I'm a resident of Forest Housing in the Bronx. I graduated from NYCHA Reese Food Business Pathway Program in 2016. My mom was a senior cook at my community school. She was my first role model. After high school, I joined the military back in my home country, Jamaica. I migrated 2016 to be with my family. I started my catering company in 2016, and the first contract was for 300 people at a community event. The NYCHERI's food business program helped me to formally launch my catering company, and they provided support to help me, including paying for my business registration, providing food business classes, business coaching, and food industry resources. As a Section 3 business concern, I'm a registered vendor through NYCHER Supply Vendor Protocol. I have also been benefited from market access opportunity offered by NYCHERI's program, which has included being a food vendor for the following projects coordinated by NYCHERI's: Brooklyn Navy Yard, Grote, New York, NYCHER Thanksgiving Meals, Governor Highlands. The NYCHER Food Expansion Program, funded by the Major Task Force on Racial Inclusive Equity that hires food business graduates, helped me to earn revenue in my business by selecting me as a food vendor for the meals program. I have also been a New York City MWBE certified 2017, and this was selected vendor providing meals for workers during the COVID vaccine 2021. It was a good experience for me. I also provided revenue during time when the country was shut down. During the pandemic, it would be helpful providing more opportunities to connect through SBC food vendors, city contracts, even provide contracts. Sometimes just being able to bid for a contract, it is not enough. There needs to be more direct access to contract through SBC. One of the things that has been challenging for me, affordable kitchen space. I started out in a commercial kitchen incubator in East Harlem. I received scholarship. I received scholarship from NYCHERI's to pay for the kitchen space. Hybrid kitchen moved out, a different kitchen take over. I know it's very expensive to provide meals in that kitchen. And if the city could provide cooking space for NYCHERI's food business party, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Mr. Barber, you should be receiving.
Yes. Hello, all. My name is Daniel Barber, and I'm the president of the Jackson Houses, as well as the Citywide Council of Presidents Chairman. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak with the chairs and the committee members of Housing and Civil Service and Labor today on Section 3. For years, I've been an advocate for Section 3, along with my predecessor, the late John Johnson of Mount Haven Houses, as well as being trained by Mr. Keith Swiney of Motivation, Inc. Section 3's goals are applicable pursuant to 24 CFR 135 as dictated by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. Section 3 of the Housing Urban Development Act of 1968 ensures that employment, training, and contracting generated by certain HUD financial assistance should feasible be directed to low, very low income persons and to business concerns which provide economic opportunities to those persons. Section 3 of Housing Urban Development Act of 1968 as amended by the Housing and Community Development Act of 1992 requires public housing authorities and their contractors, subcontractors make their best efforts consistent with existing federal, state, local laws as regulations to give low, very low income persons training, employment, and economic opportunities generated by development assistance provided pursuant to Section 1437C of Title 42, operating grants operating assistance provided pursuant to Section 1437G of Title 42, and modernization grants provided pursuant to Section 1437I of Title 42. HUD must implement and enforce Section 3 in accordance with this act. The final rule on Section 3 regulation for CFR Part 75, the new rule, was published on September the 29th, 2020, and became effective as of November 30th, 2020. The new rule updated HUD Section 3 regulation by reducing regulatory burden and by incentivizing employers to retain and invest in low, very low income workers. 75.9 requirements, employment and training. Consistent with existing federal, state, and local law and regulations, public housing authorities or other residents receiving public housing financial assistance, and their contractors and subcontractors must make their best effort to provide employment and training opportunities generated by public housing financial assistance to Section 3 workers. PHAs or other recipients and their contractors, subcontractors must make their best efforts described in paragraph A1 of this section in the following order of priority. 1, to residents of public housing projects for which financial assistance is expended. 2, the residents of public housing projects managed by PHAs that is providing assistance, or for residents of Section 3 assisted housings managed by PHAs. So with the part of the Civil Rights Act, so with this part of the Civil Rights Act federal mandate, and to ignore the opportunity of Black and Brown, has shown that New York City Housing Authority has and is continuing to moderate racisms that have been in practices for years, and has failed with its lack of oversight, and no true mechanisms in place to complain since the removal of the 958 compliance process. NYCHA still pushes the residents
Mr. Barber?
must be in the union to get work, and yes.
Mr. Barber, could you wrap it up in
Hello?
a couple of seconds? Yes. We're beyond time. Could you wrap up?
So, yes, I'm wrapping up now. So, with this, I ask you guys at the council and the committees to really look into the practices that are not fair to the residents of public houses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Barber. We would like to ask some questions to the panelists. First, I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the panelists for coming here today. And I'm delighted to hear, Ms. Wells, your story, and Mr. Robinson in a successful food business and receiving the support that you needed to grow your business. I think this is what we want to see magnified. We want to hear everyone having the same exact story. And I just want to acknowledge the challenge that both of you put forward to this council for us to also support your businesses is how do we ensure and help you gain affordable commercial kitchen space. We heard you loud and clear, and we're going to talk to our other colleagues. And also the challenge with procurement and payments on time. That is definitely a citywide issue that needs to be addressed because it puts businesses in very tenuous situations. So I just wanted to say we heard you loud and clear, and we applaud your effort, and we want your businesses to succeed. And we want to see this story replicated a million times over from every NYCHA resident. And that is the goal, to see success across the board and to address where there are gaps. So I just want to thank you for that. I guess, would you like to ask a question? Okay.
Excuse me, sir, I'm so sorry. What's your name again? Yes, Mr. Wells?
Robert Wells.
I know that you haven't gotten an answer from NYCHA, or you would like some clarification from the administration, is that correct?
Yes.
From the agency? I know that the administration is here in the room today, right? Could you guys connect with Mr. Wells to make sure that he gets clarification on some of the questions that he is dealing with? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Osei. Mr. Wells, can you tell me how long has your case been under investigation from when it started?
2016? 2016 with 250 Broadway. That's when I first got in Section 3.
And that's when you first reported receiving underpayment?
Yes, 2016. But my investigator passed away, so I don't know what's going on.
Do you have a new investigator?
But I've been calling. They keep telling me the same thing, ongoing investigation. So I'm trying to be patient, that's all. Just thank God I'm still here to breathe and live. Hopefully get some answers.
Got it. How much contact have you had with NYCHA's departments outside of your specific case? How much contact have you had from Reese or any other department within NYCHA around employment opportunities?
Well, actually, I was on the phone with Reese Janet Rivera 2 days ago, and she asked me, what you want me to do for you? So I really don't understand when she said that. I called the union today. He telling me, when you pay your book, then we could talk. So it doesn't make no sense. It really doesn't. You ain't got my back anyway, so, I mean, it doesn't make no sense.
Mr. Wells, in terms of, have you experienced Section 3 hires being the first hired and the first fired on projects?
Yes. All them jobs I got on my own. The union never got me a job. Section 3 never got me a job. So I shaped the jobs on my own because I know I'm qualified and then my credentials. The most I've been on a job is 3 months, and they get rid of you. And it's sad.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. We will continue to have this conversation, dive much deeper into the situation. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you all for your testimony. Wish you all continued success and real opportunities for our residents. Mr. Barber, thank you for your testimony, for all your work on CCOP citywide. We will continue this conversation and dig into these issues that you noted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to the panelists. We'll now bring up the representatives from NYCHA.
We'd like to acknowledge we've been joined by Councilmember Caban, Councilmember Salamanca, and Councilmember Bottcher.
If the representatives from NYCHA could raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do.
If you all could identify yourself and your title for the record, that would be helpful.
I'm Matthew Charney, Vice President for Design and Construction within the Real Estate Department at NYCHA.
Sergio Paneque, Chief Procurement Officer for NYCHA.
Shana Castillo, Senior Director, Resident Initiatives, NYCHA.
Sean Mavani, Chief Asset and Capital Management Officer at NYCHA.
So you may begin your testimony.
Chairs Alexa Aviles, Carmen de la Rosa, members on the committees of Public Housing and Civil Service and Labor, other distinguished members of the City Council, NYCHA residents, community advocates, and members of the public, good afternoon. I am Shana Castillo, NYCHA Senior Director of Resident Initiatives. I am pleased to be joined by Chief Procurement Officer Sergio Paneque, Chief Asset and Capital Management Officer Sean Mavani, Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer Carrie Ju, Vice President of Design and Construction Matthew Charney, and other members of NYCHA's team. Connecting residents to high-quality job training and employment opportunities is an integral part of NYCHA's mission to strengthen communities across the city. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss these efforts, which are so impactful to residents' quality of life. NYCHA's Resident Economic Empowerment and Sustainability Office, known as REES, helps residents increase their income and assets through programs, policies, and collaborations in the areas of employment and career advancement, adult education and vocational training, financial empowerment, and business development in all 5 boroughs. The results of our work are tangible. Since its inception in 2009, REES has established over 80 economic opportunity partnerships and has launched numerous initiatives tailored for NYCHA residents. The NYCHA Resident Training Academy, NRTA, is a key REES program that has provided residents with employment-linked training in maintenance, painter's apprenticeship, construction, janitorial services, and pest control, equipping residents with the knowledge, skills, and industry certifications they need to succeed. Since its creation in 2010, 3,486 residents have graduated from the NRTA, 89% of whom have gained employment at NYCHA or with NYCHA vendors and other employers. NYCHA has worked strategically to create career pathways opportunities for NRTA graduates, navigating the civil service system and receiving New York State Department of Labor recognition as a direct entry provider for construction training. We are proud that NYCHA's and the NRTA's success in training and hiring have been recognized by leading industry organizations. To further our resident training and hiring efforts, NYCHA and the nonprofit Fund for Public Housing announced the NYCHA Clean Energy Academy last year, securing state and private funding. The 2-year program will prepare 100 NYCHA residents for cutting-edge clean energy careers while helping the authority achieve its sustainability goals. The first cohort starts this spring. As part of our economic empowerment work, REES connects residents to Section 3 employment opportunities. Section 3 is a HUD regulation that requires recipients of HUD financial assistance to generate jobs and other economic opportunities for public housing residents and other low-income members of the community to the greatest extent feasible. From 2019 to 2021, NYCHA secured 3,070 Section 3 placements, of which 2,081 were internal NYCHA hires and 989 were vendor hires. This does not include Section 3 hires made by our PACT partners. Additionally, during the same time period, NYCHA and its partners secured 720 placements outside of Section 3 obligations. Residents interested in working on a Section 3 project can get their skills, interests, and qualifications assessed at a REES info session. Interested residents are connected to partner providers for skills-based training. Residents are added to REES's database, which is used to make referrals to contractors. Residents may also utilize Opportunity Connect, one of NYCHA's self-service portals, to register their interest in Section 3 with REES and to refer themselves to vocational training services. Importantly, residents may apply directly for work with NYCHA contractors, as all vendors are responsible under the regulation for performing their own Section 3 workforce outreach. Section 3 requirements are applied to NYCHA's capital projects and operations work. Our PACT construction work is also subject to Section 3 requirements. In accordance with HUD's previous Section 3 rule, NYCHA has aimed to ensure that at least 30% of new hires are Section 3 hires. HUD's new rule on Section 3 went into effect in November 2020. It updated the Section 3 benchmark metrics and the applicability of Section 3 across funding sources and contract types. The new benchmarks require 25% of all labor hours to be worked by Section 3 workers and 5% of all labor hours to be worked by targeted Section 3 workers for contracts awarded after the new rule went into effect. NYCHA Public Housing and NYCHA Section 8 residents are included in the definition of a targeted Section 3 worker. The changes to HUD's new rule require significant changes to our internal policies, processes, and systems. In recent years, NYCHA has undertaken several internal enhancements to improve NYCHA's Section 3 program and transition to the new rule. That includes centralizing Section 3 compliance tracking under the Procurement Department, launching new technology to improve authority-wide visibility of contractor commitment and performance, diversifying employment offerings by extending resident hiring requirements to building management post-PACT conversion, implementing other economic opportunities requirements for professional services vendors, and developing updated procedures and training for staff across the authority. In July 2022, NYCHA launched a new vendor-facing software solution to strengthen labor compliance. In the first phase of the rollout, contractors subject to prevailing wage requirements began submitting certified payroll data online as part of their invoice package. Through regular required payroll submissions, NYCHA has greater visibility into contractors' Section 3 hires and labor hours. In October 2022, NYCHA expanded the scope to capture a broader range of Section 3 activities. Once fully implemented, the system will enable NYCHA to set Section 3 goals or commitments on individual solicitations, allow proposers to submit resident economic opportunity and other economic opportunity plans online, and allow all contracted vendors to submit Section 3 labor hours, including for workers not in prevailing wage titles. Contractors will also be able to submit payments to subcontractors directly into the system. The technology will vastly streamline compliance activities for NYCHA and its vendors, improve visibility, and enable NYCHA to better track compliance and take action when contractors fail to fulfill their obligations. The system has other benefits, including robust reporting, flexibility to configure NYCHA-specific data fields, the ability to build and maintain a publicly available directory of Section 3 business concerns, and facilitation of more effective outreach. The expanded functionality will be introduced to all NYCHA contractors over the course of 2023. In 2022, NYCHA introduced 2 procurement policy changes to strengthen Section 3. The Section 3 and MWBE First policy gives first preference to Section 3 business concerns. S3BCs are business majority owned or operated by Section 3 residents. And then to minority and women-owned business enterprises, MWBE, for all procurements up to $250,000. In addition, NYCHA began assigning value to RFP proposal evaluation scores for the quality of the proposers' Section 3 and MWBE plans. To foster equity and economic advancement, NYCHA regularly promotes contracting opportunities for Section 3 business concerns and MWBEs. In February 2023, NYCHA Procurement hosted NYCHA Connect, a Section 3 and MWBE event at the Borough of Manhattan Community College to connect S3BCs and MWBEs with NYCHA departments so they could learn about micro and small purchase opportunities. The speed networking event enabled attendees from nearly 100 businesses, including 36 S3BCs, to engage in brief conversations, round-robin style, with NYCHA staff from various departments, including borough, property management teams, central operations, which includes heating, elevators, and waste and pest management, asset and capital management, and IT. Approximately 500 unique conversations were facilitated between vendors and NYCHA staff. Vendors also had the opportunity to obtain additional resources from NYCHA's Procurement Department, REIS, NYC Small Business Services, the Mayor's Office of Contract Services, and the Mayor's Office of MWBEs. Procurement and Asset and Capital Management are currently planning the next networking event. From 2019 through 2022, nearly 8,500 micro, small, and large purchases worth about $1.2 billion were awarded to MWBEs as prime vendors. An additional $173 million was awarded to MWBEs as subcontractors, and over 3,000 purchases worth more than $80 million were awarded to S3BCs. These S3BC figures will be further refined as part of our technology enhancements. In 2021, 314 hires, or 20% of hires under NYCHA's completed capital projects and operations contracts subject to the old HUD rule were Section 3 hires, an increase over 13% in 2019 and 14% in 2020, but falling short of the 30% benchmark for these contracts. However, through 2022, all PACT projects subject to the old Section 3 rule where construction is complete exceeded the required benchmarks of 30%, with 356 hires, or 58%, qualifying as Section 3 hires in total across 5 completed projects. PACT projects with construction work subject to the new Section 3 rule are ongoing. NYCHA monitors and manages Section 3 performance of capital projects and operations contractors and PACT partners throughout the period of work contracted, and works with these contractors and partners to maximize Section 3 performance by the conclusion of construction. Iris Colado, a 15-year-old resident of Ocean Bay Apartments, is one of the many residents hired by our PACT partners. She was originally hired to serve as a construction administrative specialist and resident liaison for her development's conversion to Section 8. She has now been employed by MDG Design and Construction for over 6 years, working on 3 different PACT projects. Another MDG employee started out on the painting team with a subcontractor working on comprehensive renovations at Betanzas houses, and was later hired by MDG as a full-time carpenter. He has also helped connect other residents to hiring opportunities at Betanzas houses. A Hamel Houses resident graduated from the NRTA and was referred by Reese to work on comprehensive renovations at Linden Houses. She was hired full-time by the PACT Partners contractor, and thanks to the partner's support, joined the Local 79 union last summer. Additionally, our PACT partners have been working with the Youth Build program to provide training and internship opportunities throughout the city for Section 3 candidates, helping to create meaningful jobs for young people and provide them with the resources and support they need to succeed in their careers. Hiring residents is not just a mandate, but is integral to the culture of our organization. Residents make up about 20% of NYCHA's workforce. Empowering residents with vital economic opportunities is at the heart of our work, and Reese carries out this mission in various ways beyond connecting residents to Section 3 job opportunities through its partnerships with city agencies and local service providers. For instance, city and federal funding have enabled NYCHA, HRA, and other city partners to launch and expand the Jobs Plus program, which is currently at 12 sites, offering residents of 43 NYCHA developments life-changing employment, education, and financial empowerment services. Also, NYCHA has worked with the NYC Health Department and various local organizations to prioritize NYCHA resident hiring and on-the-job training for new community health worker opportunities. 46 residents were hired to support their neighbors at 43 developments by connecting them to highly beneficial health and social services. Additionally, Reese's Food and Catering Business Pathways, Childcare Business Pathways, and Construction Business Pathways programs for residents are helping budding entrepreneurs launch or grow their businesses. And our partnership with HPD, Enterprise Community Partners, and Brooklyn Workforce Innovations is training NYCHA residents for quality jobs in the affordable housing industry. Providing residents with economic opportunities has significant and lasting impact on communities across the city, and it is through partnership that we can best foster these pathways for success and a brighter future. We thank the Council and other partners for their support with these efforts, and we look forward to collaborating with you to identify additional ways we can better serve NYCHA residents as well as further strengthen our organization. Thank you. We are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Ms. Castillo, and thank you to the NYCHA staff that is present here today. I will start with several questions and then turn it over to my colleagues and then resume afterwards, because it seems like we have a lot of interest and a lot of questions to move through. So let's start with just overview of Section 3. So who within NYCHA is responsible for overseeing Section 3 hiring?
I can start and then turn it over to my colleagues. So Section 3 is a multi-department approach at NYCHA. As stated in the testimonial, Reese is there to support residents with job training initiatives to get them ready for work. Reese will also work with vendors on job orders and source candidates as appropriate. Our administering departments play a large role in our Section 3 process as well as procurement.
So when you say administering departments, what?
Departments that administer contracts. So I can hand it over to my colleague Sergio in procurement.
Thank you, Shauna. So when we issue contracts, those goals are set forth for the vendors to meet those requirements under HUD. And then and those vendors are required to meet those responsibilities and those outreach and whatnot. And when they issue invoices back into NYCHA for payment, they're required to present hiring or labor summaries in support of their work to those goals and efforts.
So it's the procurement department? I'm trying to get specific for the record, who is in charge of these hiring metrics? Where does it move? Residents don't have any idea how to track any of this. So could you help us walk through?
From a reporting and compliance standpoint, procurement is responsible for reporting all vendor-related hires.
Great. So procurement is the agency that'll approve the contracts and that monitors the contracts over its life.
Yes, that's correct. As Ms. Castillo stated in her testimony, as part of our re-engineering and our restructuring efforts and transformation, those responsibilities were consolidated within procurement in order to meet those goals.
Great. We understand that was an early recommendation that the functions were distributed throughout NYCHA and was very difficult to hold, but that has since been corrected and is now sitting with procurement.
From a reporting standpoint, correct. And as Ms. Castillo mentioned in her testimony, now with eComply and the electronic tool, we're able to bring together and glue all those respective functions that are obviously in the programmatic areas under one guise of control.
Great. The Trump administration rule change in 2020 loosened the Section 3 hiring criteria. Can you specify exactly what those changes are?
In particular, the change is from reporting of new hires to that of hours reporting, the actual labor related to the work requiring performance. That is a huge distinction between the two different goals programs.
And how does NYCHA track? Is there a projected hour stipulation at the front end when the contracts are awarded? Does it modify during the life of the contract? How do you know you're meeting that?
Correct. So at the point of solicitation, a vendor will provide an REO plan, Resident Engagement Opportunity Plan. Sorry.
Resident Economic Opportunity Plan.
Thank you. And at that point then, that establishes either the hiring plan under the old goals or the labor hours under the new goals. And then again, as I mentioned before, when invoices are presented, the vendor is required to submit a summary of those outcomes to the programs who review those invoices and then provide them to procurement for reporting purposes.
Got it. And Ms. Castillo started to mention the new system that is rolling in terms of tracking. Will the system be able to track all the hires, or is that an ongoing process? Is it all tracked in this new system, or is that?
It really is. I mean, we're excited about that. All compliance, frankly, from prevailing wage, which is where initially e-comply has been implemented within the system in both operations and capital contracts. And then in regards to Section 3 and MWBE. So as it relates to policies to procurement, that's why that's really a sea change for NYCHA and having one centralized technology platform that's going to capture that information. At the point of solicitation and then carrying that over the contract management. I mean, we're still in a double state environment where we are paper-driven, manual, email, that type of environment, and especially given the size of our organization, that's challenging. But moving that to an electronic format is going to not only provide compliance to these goals, but then also provide data on the front end. From a procurement standpoint, that then aligns with the pipelines and what we're requiring under our necessary resources, so we can then communicate, whether it be REIS or the program areas, what type of labor lines or titles that we're seeing in these reports, and then how folks can be more active in the way that we manage both programmatically as well as how we engage with the vendor community.
And when do you expect to have it fully transitioned?
So we're on schedule. We're looking at a final rollout. As you heard in the testimony, we have a soft launch right now within capital management, and those contractors that are already submitting reports under prevailing wage. Fourth quarter of this year, we will see an implementation. So full reporting into 2024 in the system.
Got it. Oh, yes. I'd like to acknowledge we've been joined by additional council members. Councilmember Feliz. Oh, Councilmember Ressler and Councilmember Joseph. Thank you for being here. What is the total reach of Section 3 hires? How many were made in fiscal 22 and fiscal 23 year to date? And how does that compare against HUD goals for Section 3?
Chairwoman, we are challenged with our Section 3 reporting for fiscal year 22. As I mentioned, we are in a blended environment right now with both a paper-driven manual process as well as our rollout of e-comply. The current data is not reliable to present to the committee at this time. We are working on that, and by the end of the quarter, we will have that available, and I look forward to presenting back to the committee our reporting.
But the data within this time frame comes under the new rule set, right?
The new rule and the old rule. We have a mixed portfolio of contracts subject to both old rule and new rule, and that's really the challenge as we're implementing the new system, as well as caring for the existing reporting process.
So from a compliance perspective, you're not able to report on actual hires. However, how are you vetting contracts?
How we vet their submissions as far
as how do you vet their submissions and
their submissions still go through
compliance as well
through REIS, and those plans are then approved. Those all then roll into the new awards as they're being approved and executed. But again, the majority of our corpus of our contracts is currently in the old rule as things are migrating.
So what's the breakdown of the amount of contracts you're holding under the old rule versus the new rule?
That's a good question. I would have to get back to the committee on that distribution between the two. Recognize that in FY22, those solicitations that were being issued in 21, and obviously the time it takes to fulfill the contract process, were being awarded in '22, and then now we're in a state where we're starting to report on those things. So really, the majority of the corpus of the work is really in the old rule.
And so are you tracking under the new rule? Are you using other tracking metrics or?
Largely, it is the old paper email submissions to procurement put into our what's called our CTS system, the contract tracking system.
Okay. So what is the budget for Section 3 outreach and operations?
Within procurement?
Sure.
Within both Section 3 and MWBE, we have one and a half FTEs in support of the program.
I'm sorry, say that
We
one
have
more time.
1.5 full-time employees in support of both MWBE and Section 3. The leader of that area is both from a performance management analysis standpoint that is responsible in procurement for Section 3, MWBE. Our performance metrics, our implementation and optimization of our Oracle system and what have you, but specifically to Section 3 and MWBE.
This includes compliance as well?
This is strictly compliance within procurement. I defer to my colleagues for other areas and programmatically speaking.
Sure. So from a programmatic perspective for resident outreach and supports, including job training supports, Reese has about 55 staff.
So I would just add, in addition to staff, obviously we do outreach work and events and have various programs that were mentioned by my colleague Shanna in the testimony around race programs. We also allocate, we do regular MWB Section 3 events with vendors, and we also allocate funding to programs specific in the capital side that I oversee, outreach programs around Section 3, around resident training. I think we would have to pull all of that information together to give you an answer to your question around the total budget that we allocate across the different business units.
I'm actually quite surprised that you only have 1.5 full-time persons for compliance. I mean, yeah.
It's a challenge. We've seen reductions in staff since I came on board in 2020. Obviously, because of the circumstances and budgetarily speaking and whatnot, our focus at this stage is, and why it's so critical that we move to an electronic process for reporting, is that the manual process within procurement is just not sustainable. I do believe that with the eComply system and the commitments that have been made by our finance office to that effort, we will be able then to fully be able to report on those systems, on those goals, given the capability of the system, and really be able to take out even more capability out of even just those 1.5 FTEs.
And what's the amount of contracts that this 1.5 FTE would actually oversee?
With respect to Section 3, it's just sub 800 contracts.
800 contracts.
800 contracts subject to Section 3 goals. And if you think about that from an invoice and a reporting standpoint, and even if you multiply 800 times 12, there's a volume. But there's even instances where contracts have multiple task orders per contract.
Sure.
And each of those TOs then would have goals related to it. So it is a
So
significant.
at 800 contracts, what would be the dollar value, a rough estimate of 800 contracts?
I would have to get back to the.
Probably billions of dollars. One person and a half is overseeing 800 contracts, potentially billions of dollars of procurement.
But again, this is from a reporting standpoint. There's still a significant amount of work programmatically throughout the agency.
From a reporting standpoint, one person.
If I could add to my procurement colleagues' answer, in terms of staff time dedicated to assure compliance on contracts, right? So within NYCHA's overall budget, obviously a significant and the majority portion of these contracts that are subject to Section 3 are capital work, right? And so each of our capital projects is overseen by a team of project managers and assistant project managers. As part of their role, they are the ones who are reviewing each invoice that comes in from the vendor, working with the vendor to check Section 3 compliance. If they're not meeting Section 3 compliance, problem solve how they could do that better, connect them with Reese, do other things. So each of those employees in my area is also spending a portion of their time on invoice processing, which includes Section 3 compliance work, right? And so, as an indication, right, on my side, the folks managing capital projects where that's part of their role, right, that's over 70 or 80 people who are allocating a portion of their time to this. So as an organization, we do have within our, what we're calling our program units or our business units, a responsibility to also allocate staffing focused on Section 3 compliance.
And so when your team has a problem with a contract, how does it interface with the 1.5 and the other team?
Sure. Where there is repeated non-performance or we don't think that a vendor may be making best efforts, we will escalate that to the central team. We have a process for several years now where we may share formal kind of non-compliance letters with vendors, have sessions with vendors, work with them. So we'll pull in our procurement function, our Reese colleagues and others to engage on that process of working with a vendor or sanctioning a vendor for underperformance or, again, where we feel they're not making best efforts to meet the goals.
Got it. I have a vision of a football schematic with like X's and O's and squiggly lines, and no one knows where to go for what. But I'm going to trust that you have a better system than what I'm understanding. Given the skilled trades work is desperately needed on NYCHA campuses where residents live, what Section 3 pathways are focused on the skills trades?
Sure. I can start by talking about the various types of job training opportunities that we collect residents to. So primarily that's the NYCHA Resident Training Academy. Annually, we are training for a janitorial training class, which will connect to employment at NYCHA. On the apprenticeship union trade side, we're also training for a construction cohort for NYCHA residents, and that has a state level direct entry approval status, and so that creates a pathway for us to then, upon graduation, connect those residents to the trades for interviews and testing for a union apprenticeship. Outside of that, we are working with a network of partners who also are skilling up NYCHA residents and may also connect them to construction trade training. One example would be St. Nick's Alliance, CUNY, City Tech University. There are a number of other partners that we have. And those are pathways to also connect residents to skilled trade opportunities.
And does NYCHA track unemployment at NYCHA developments?
Sure.
Yes, we do have centralized data around employment status of residents. We don't have that with us today, but we can share that after the hearing.
Sure. I'd like to know the frequency with which you're tracking the data and see the data. Is that a factor in how you assess where to spend HUD funding? The unemployment rate, is that a factor when NYCHA is assessing where to spend HUD funding?
To clarify the question on training programs?
Yep.
Okay. And so also further clarify, NYCHA residents are filling out an annual certification. There are opportunities where they fill out an interim certification if there's a change in income. So that is by which we are collecting data around either self-employment or the types of income that households are receiving, whether that's from employment or otherwise. So that is distinct from state-level unemployment data. Just want to make that clarification. But certainly, we do connect with our performance and tracking analytics department to understand where we are at in terms of NYCHA residents and the amount that, for example, are not reporting income from work, but are non-disabled and within the general working ages of 18 to 61 years old. In order to acquire HUD funding for job training or similar related initiatives, we must apply for competitive grants. Generally, during this competitive grant application process, we're pulling on that data in addition to doing local resident surveying.
How often do you do local resident surveys?
We have an annual survey that went out in 2022. This was distinct from surveying that we had to do for HUD grants in 2022. And we have a 2023 survey that will go out this late spring, and will go out annually from there.
What's the rate of response on the surveys?
We had over 6,500 resident responses in about a month time.
So 6,000 of 523,000 residents responded?
That's correct.
I'd like to, Councilmember, would you like to jump in? And then I'll return back to some basic questions. I want to give my colleagues an opportunity to ask because they have commitments.
Thank you. I'll also ask a few and then turn it back. I wanted to ask about project labor agreements. NYCHA's project labor agreement expired on June 30th, 2018. At the last hearing on this topic in 2019, NYCHA said that it was in the process of renegotiating a project labor agreement with the Building Trades Construction Council. Is the city planning on developing a new project labor agreement with the Building Trades Council?
Thank you for the question, council member. Yes, we've had several rounds of kind of starts and stops on that negotiation process. We have been extending the existing project labor agreement in the interim. We have a very active negotiating process going on right now, and I believe that we're making good progress and are aiming to be able to have an updated project labor agreement in the near future.
Thank you. With PACT and RAD, guidelines still include Section 3 residential hire requirements. How has PACT and RAD conversion impacted Section 3 resident hiring?
I'll turn it to my colleague, Matt, from Real Estate.
Sure. Hi, thanks for the question. So PACT projects are the work, which is defined by HUD as the construction work, basically, is subject to Section 3 under the RAD notice. To date, for the 5 completed PACT projects, we've made 356 Section 3 hires.
How many?
356 Section 3 hires for the 5 completed projects, out of 618 total hires across those 5 projects, which is about 58%. We've got more projects under the old rule ongoing, and then we have 5 projects under the new rule also ongoing.
And for the 5 projects that are ongoing, or they're new projects, or this is included in the total that you just gave?
Yeah, so the number I just gave is the 5 completed projects.
Okay.
So we're also tracking for ongoing old rule projects, and now we have, excuse me, now we have ongoing new rule projects as well. So with the old rule projects, we've made over 500 Section 3 hires to date, and those projects are still ongoing. Mm-hmm. And then with the new rule projects, even though the new Section 3 rule is more focused on labor hours and not hiring, we still require our PAC partners to put together a hiring plan, work with Reese, provide training opportunities, give Reese all the job order forms when new jobs become available. So those projects are have all started basically within the last year, and they've made 72 additional hires for those new projects.
Do you know 72 out of what? What's the project?
I don't have that number.
Okay.
We're tracking labor hours for strict Section 3 compliance now, not
Okay. Can you explain how NYCHA coordinates both Section 3 and union hiring requirements on their capital projects?
Sure, and I can take that as I oversee the capital work. While our capital work largely happens underneath the project labor agreement, Section 3 requirements are also part of our contracts with our vendors. So they're legally required, as you heard earlier, to make their best efforts and to work with us on meeting those specific targets, whether they're under the old rule or under the new rule. Under the existing PLA that we're utilizing, as you highlighted earlier, there are different ways that the vendor can meet Section 3 requirements at the same time, right? The most basic way is if the referrals that come from local unions are also Section 3 workers, then obviously that is a way that the vendor can start to meet Section 3 requirements. There are also pathways where non-union staff who may be Section 3 workers can be part of a capital contract and can work on that contract, right? There are specific clauses within the PLA that allow both MWB and non-MWB vendors to bring a portion of employees from outside the union system. They can utilize those spots to meet Section 3 requirements. The PLA also ensures that if a local union has not provided enough female or minority applicants equal to our workforce participation goals in our contracts with our vendors, then the vendor can look outside the union referrals to look for those candidates, including Section 3 hires. One of the clauses in most of the PLAs in the city is what's called the 48-hour rule. If a local cannot provide qualified candidates within 48 hours of a vendor's request, they can also hire outside the referral system. And again, we ask them to prioritize Section 3 candidates under that pathway. And then there are certain types of work under capital contracts that are excluded from the PLA, typically called excluded employees. So things like superintendents, engineers, guards, technicians, and a range of other roles that are not covered under the PLA and that can be hired outside. And we encourage our vendors to focus on Section 3 hires under those type of roles as well.
How does NYCHA determine whether a job is appropriate for Section 3 hire or the unionized worker?
So I think there's two parts to that question. In general, determining what individual is qualified and most appropriate for a specific role under a capital contract is the responsibility of that specific vendor, the way they may have planned the work, the type of roles they need, the means and methods of the construction. And so therefore that's really something that suits with the vendor, but that is obviously subject to their contractual requirement with us to meet Section 3 goals with their best efforts, as well as what you heard earlier, which is the initial Section 3 plan that they provide, and on the basis of which we've basically awarded the contract to them. And so we have an ongoing process, as I've highlighted, with every invoice, which would be monthly or could be quarterly, to review their progress against their Section 3 performance and to work with them to understand how to ensure that they can best meet the goals by the end of the contract.
If NYCHA determines that a vendor isn't, working in good faith to meet the goals, what are their interventions available?
So currently, if we see that performance is not moving in the right direction and we're moving through, let's say we're later into a contract and they're not realizing that plan, and our efforts as a business unit is not sufficient to move them in that direction, as I briefly explained earlier, we would escalate that case through our reporting and would work with our procurement colleagues who would send out a non-compliance letter to the vendor. If that happens more than once in the course of a contract, which is typically multiple years, there would be also a live discussion with the vendor about those non-compliance issues, what else we think they could do, how else they could coordinate with REIS or with other parts of NYCHA to ensure that they're better able to meet the goals.
But are there any consequences?
Currently, our contractual terms and conditions do not lend themselves to kind of I think what you're alluding to financial consequences or we do not, under current policy, stop a construction job because we're not certain if they're going to be able to meet the goals or not by the end of the contract.
Okay. Does NYCHA's office, does Reese promote union apprenticeship programs to residents, and how?
Yes, we do. So we are regularly promoting a variety of economic opportunity programming for residents. We do so through a variety of methods. Notably, we send out a biweekly e-newsletter to NYCHA residents with email addresses on file that reaches about 50,000 emails on a biweekly basis. And that is advertising job training opportunities, any open hall opportunities, information of that sort. That's in addition to particular events that we are hosting, both virtually and on NYCHA campuses. Those events may be program specific, so it may be an event just to learn more about the NYCHA Resident Training Academy, for example, or they may be events that are more resource fair based. In 2022, we held over 400 virtual and in-person activities.
How closely does NYCHA work with the city unions in order to provide training and employment opportunities for NYCHA residents?
So as stated earlier, the NYCHA Resident Training Academy does have New York State direct entry status, and so we work with union partners that have signed on to recognize the NRTA program and have updated their affirmative action plans with the state of New York, recognizing the NRTA. We'll also be able to leverage that recognition when we launch new pre-apprenticeship training program like the NYCHA Clean Energy Academy. Some of our notable apprenticeship partners are IBEW Local 3 Electrician. For example, in our partnership with us, we are informing NYCHA residents about what it is to work in this particular trade. At times, we can have trade representatives, whether it's from that union or from a different union, speak to the classroom. And then we are assisting residents in preparing for the next step with that trade, which in this particular example would be an academic exam. And we do provide preparation sessions for residents to help them best prepare.
If I could add to that, in addition to the work that's done through Reese and the NRTA program around the construction pathways, where we have significant or very large capital programs, and we know that there's going to be a significant amount of work across our portfolio out of those, we've also done one-off efforts in the last 10 years to really work with unions to place residents. So if I give you an example, our Sandy program, which was obviously very large, several $1 billion of funding, because it was FEMA funding, it's not technically subject to Section 3, but we applied our Section 3 policies to it anyway. In that program, we did a couple of things. We set up a dedicated pre-apprenticeship program where we were able to allocate $1.4 million of disaster recovery funding. And through that program, over 5 years, we had taken in 250 residents. 226 graduated and 138 were successfully placed into union roles. And so that's a high rate of 56%. And so we were able to do that because we had a large program and that funding certainty. We're now doing something similar for our comprehensive modernization program, where we again have about $1 billion of funding across several projects, and we know that we can utilize those opportunities. And so we are shaping a very similar pre-apprenticeship program that's specifically focused on working closely with several unions. Not only will it have pre-apprenticeship training, we'll also be working specifically with Local 78 targeted training and other locals who are interested to work with us to create those pathways into these union careers.
So one of the things that we've been talking about as a council is the number of NYCHA residents that are unfortunately behind right now in paying their rent and are in arrears. Is there some sort of comparison or targeted mailing or outreach that can be done to NYCHA residents who are currently unemployed or in arrears to see if there's a match here?
So That's a good question, and we'll, take it back. There definitely has been communication to residents on the ERAP side. That communication did include a mention of Reese, but I'd want to provide more specific information to see if your particular suggestion was addressed with that communication, and if not, we'll take it under advisement. Thank you.
Just more proactive, and then, you have folks like Mr. Wells, who I think testified in the pre-panel, who was apparently a part of some sort of Section 3 program and then kind of fell off from what I understood. If there are residents in that way where they've participated in Section 3, but they've had a hard time either staying in or finding stable employment, is there a proactive communication that NYCHA does with some of these residents to say, hey, we know you had maybe a bad experience or weren't able to keep the job more than 3 months, but here's another opportunity that could fit better?
So we'll definitely take his information and look into that particular case, but generally, we are connecting with residents of the past. They stay in our database. We have their emails, we have their phone numbers, we're emailing them, we're phone banking them. We have staff that are going out to their developments. And so that is something. And then we're also encouraging residents to continue to access us for services, to let us know when they have contact information that needs to be updated by filling out a new intake form.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair.
Yeah, we're going to pass it on to Councilmember Kagan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this important hearing. So I proudly represent Southern Brooklyn. I have Coney Island and Marlboro houses in my district, and I deal with this question all the time. Before I even became council member, I worked for New York City Comptroller's Office for many years, and I recall several audits by several controllers, specifically of Section 3, sorry. So, and I still see a lot of issues, like it's over the years. It's not just like last month. So you mentioned issue with paperwork and electronic records, but still, talking about promotions and information, a lot of NYCHA residents still don't know about openings, about vacancies, about the process, about how Section 3 works. So what is your effort in general and specifically in Southern Brooklyn, I would say, just to promote existing opportunities for NYCHA residents to get these jobs, and not just maintenance workers, not just like clean up stuff, but even other professions, and carpenters, electricians, and maybe engineers even. We have a lot of talented people in our community.
So I can answer. Thank you for your question. Communication and outreach is incredibly important and vital, and we can never do enough of it. So we do have systems that we have outlines in place where we are promoting to local communities, but oftentimes residents will need to see or hear a piece of information multiple times, and sometimes they may miss it. So we definitely would appreciate partnering more closely with your office, with other council members' office in promoting opportunities to NYCHA residents. And we're also, just to speak to your other point about white-collar careers, we do have a number of partnerships that extend in trainings in information technology, in healthcare, in administrative careers, and so those are opportunities that we want to continue to expand. We know that this is an area of interest for many NYCHA residents as well.
And related question about job fairs, again, about opportunities. First of all, in Coney Island, for example, we have Workforce One development. We have job fairs by Alliance of Coney Island, and my office also partnering with many organizations, and Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, and many other. So we have several job fairs over the years. I would like to see NYCHA at each one of them, to offer opportunities to residents. Talking about Marlboro, last year I secured funding, $8 million from New York City Council to Marlboro Community Center. The work has not even started, but my point is, if it started for renovations and repairs. I would like more Marlboro residents to have an opportunity to participate in making their own community center better. Is it possible?
I can speak to the tabling piece on the fares opportunities. So certainly if we receive invites from elected officials' office, we almost always will have a Reese presence there. Sometimes those invites go directly to us or through our intergovernmental team who sends it along. So absolutely, next events that you have, we would appreciate partnering and being able to showcase our resources there. I'll add my colleague Sean if there's anything else he'd like to add.
Sure, thank you, Councilmember Kagan. Just on your second part of your question, yes, for any capital project that we undertake, and very much appreciate your allocation of that funding to help the residents at Marlboro. We work closely with the tenant association leadership there to understand the job opportunities that are coming up on the work and where there may be qualified residents at the site, given that the Section 3 rules also give a preference to residents of the specific site where the funding is being utilized.
That's good to know. And please start doing this. Money was allocated last year in July, and work has not even started.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councilmember Kagan's questions, which is one we have heard quite a lot of, could you, for the record, Ms. Castillo, send the council a list of all the management level job training that is offered through Section 3? Or what kinds of management job opportunities are available?
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your question clearly. So would you like for us to send a list of all of our service opportunities, which are job training related?
Yes, and where you have been able to see success in the placement of a Section 3 candidate in a managerial position. What we've heard anecdotally from residents is those are very far and few in between. Where you're seeing most placements is on what they're considering the lowest wage jobs, the entry-level jobs, but in terms of managerial positions, administrative positions, that those seem more far and few in between. So any way that we can see the data around the opportunities that exist for managerial training and pathways and where there have been actual placements and opportunities, that would help for us to get the information out to residents, because what we're hearing from residents is they don't see it. And they don't see where those opportunities actually materialize in jobs.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I can certainly work with my colleagues to get you the appropriate write-up. We are seeing that Section 3 job opportunities tend to be entry to mid-level. This does include a lot of what's been called blue-collar labor, but certainly does include other job titles such as outreach workers, resident associates, administrative titles, security, surveyors, etc. And then, of course, Reese is working on programming that is outside of Section 3. So in the testimony, we referenced connecting nearly 50 residents to community health worker positions. That is an entry-level title, but it does create a great pathway to a healthcare career. I would like to use this opportunity to just make sure the numbers are accurate on the Reese survey data that I referenced. So in 2022, we surveyed 4,618 residents in about a month time period, and that was across a couple of different surveys that went out during that time period. Our outreach method included email, door knocking, phone banking, and we will again do a 2023 survey. We can absolutely make sure that your offices receive a copy of that survey as well, so that you could, help promote in its circulation to NYCHA residents. Obviously, the more information on data we can get around residents' interests, their perceived barriers, the areas of support that they identify for us, then that's quite helpful in developing our programming.
Thank you, noted for the record. And next, we're going to turn over to Councilmember Bottcher.
Good afternoon. Could you talk about your engagement with the tenant association presidents? What role they play in the employment programs, how often you communicate with them? I had a conversation with one of the tenant association presidents in my district in Chelsea, and he was expressing some frustration with the program about the difficulty in getting his tenants hired for the projects that are happening on his campus. So I was curious about your interactions with the tenant association presidents and how you work with them.
Sure, I can start, and then my colleague Sean could add if needed. My office sits under a larger division that has very close engagement with resident leadership. For Reese in particular, we are engaging with our resident leaders on a frequent basis. We have staff that are attached to certain geographic areas of the city, so they're attached to certain resident leaders, so to speak. They are required to ensure that resident leaders are aware of upcoming Reese opportunities, offering and providing an opportunity for partnership, whether it's in virtual or in-person resident-facing activities. Particularly on the Section 3 side of the House, Reese generates a letter that will go out to resident associations when we are aware of upcoming job opportunities in the Section 3 sector. So that's specifically a Section 3 job opportunity connected to a project at their development. And when our administering departments, most notably our asset and capital management teams, are conducting pre-start and progress meetings on site at developments as it relates to these contracts. There's a Reese representative at the table.
So I can just add to that, and I think Councilmember Bottcher, when you refer to projects, probably capital projects or potentially the work we do on the PAC side, and I can pass it to Matt afterwards, as I oversee both of those programs.
One example he gave was a camera installation, how he attempted to get some of his tenants hired for the camera installation, but he said that they were only hiring union members or folks on the Section 3 list.
So yeah, that would be either a capital project or our Office of Safety and Security may have been enhancing the cameras, right? But if there's any type of vendor work involved in either of those scenarios, it is subject to our Section 3 requirements. And you mentioned the union, so if it was a larger contract, it may be subject to our project labor agreement as well. But the way we work, as Shauna started to highlight, is we engage with tenant leaders at the beginning of those projects. In the case of a camera installation, there isn't a significant architecture phase, but there's a process with the tenant leader to agree the placement of cameras, the layout of the cameras. We do not move forward with that work until we have a specific sign-off from the resident leader in addition to the property manager on exactly how that should be. And from that point can start to collaborate on any employment opportunities, and if there are any residents that are qualified at the site, who then could be taken on by a vendor to meet Section 3 requirements. And so just the last point you made, I'm not sure what the Section 3 list per se was. We do maintain through the Reese team, residents who are interested in looking for employment opportunities and are qualified can put themselves on a list so that they're easily matchable to an opportunity. And maybe the TA leader was referring to that. But that wouldn't restrict other residents at the site who are qualified to be able to join a job. So I can definitely follow up or have my team follow up in that specific case and understand what might have been either a blocking issue or a point of miscommunication, so we can clarify that.
Thanks. My tenant association president did acknowledge that they get the emails when there's training opportunities, there's an info session or opportunities coming, but he said that at his development, there were relatively few opportunities in his memory that were filled. I might suggest in a more systemic way, calling through the resident leaders and really troubleshooting the areas where you're getting that kind of feedback.
Thank you for the suggestion. I just want to further clarify in terms of a resident list. So residents absolutely should connect with Reese. Entering our database is one way for access, but it's not the only way for access. So we want to make sure that it's clear that the list is not a screener, there isn't a list, right? There are multiple access points. Vendors are responsible for their own Section 3 outreach. Reese is there to support. Residents may also apply or approach a trailer or a vendor on their own. So there are multiple pathways that should exist for residents to connect to an opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bottcher. In terms of just building off of that, when, the TAs have varying strengths and ability to communicate with residents. When you see that there may not have that capacity for broad dissemination, which is essentially what we're asking them to do, what does NYCHA do in order to ensure that these opportunities are fully communicated to residents?
Sure, thank you. Resident associations are incredibly important. They really are a great pulse on their local community, but certainly NYCHA is also conducting outreach and making sure that communication is shared to residents. As I referenced earlier, on the Reese team, we have staff members that are assigned to certain developments in neighborhoods. And so part of their assignment is to go to their developments, build a great relationship with NYCHA operations, such as housing assistants, property management staff, a great relationship with their resident association leadership, with the community centers on NYCHA campuses, which might be operated by a DYCD vendor, et cetera, and provide information. And so if this is printed material, then they are posting them and placing them at these community spaces at NYCHA developments. And then again, they are also offering opportunities for resident leaders to partner with them on on-ground events. Additionally, we have found that virtually works very well for many people, and so we are continuing to host a number of virtual events and advertising that information through partnership with our communications team to send out social media information, and also utilizing our e-newsletter, the NYCHA Journal, to showcase some of our opportunities and participant successes.
So what's the budget? What's Reese's total budget?
I don't have the total budget on hand. We can get that to you very shortly, but we are about 55 staff. Some of the staff is grant funded. We don't have a OTPS budget that is not based on grants. So in terms of services, specific programming that we're providing, for example, the NYCHA Resident Training Academy, that's privately funded. It comes from a foundation. Those dollars go straight to the training partners. NYCHA support is in kind. So our budget is really our head count. And does include currently one HUD grant, which funds a few staff lines, for example. But our program budget is really based on private funding, which we can do directly ourselves or sometimes through the Fund for Public Housing, as I referenced earlier in the testimony.
So in terms of how REIS is structured, you talked about it in terms of like zones, geographic zones. How many zones are there? And I'm trying to understand more specifically the size of the team that is responsible for all this outreach and communication with residents. It's where we have so much challenge because residents often claim they don't hear. The mailing list is teeny tiny. Clearly, people are not responding to the survey. So can you explain to me like what the zone team covers, how many, if it's distributed that way, to understand better?
Sure. So you're right. We are operating a zone model. We currently have 15 zones throughout New York City, and it is a large area to canvass. We have about 7,000 to 11,000 households per zone. It really depends on the concentration of public housing in a certain neighborhood. Our zone coordinators are a staff of 15, again, one per zone. However, they are not the only REIS point of contact. We do have an information line, which is operated by 4 staff, receiving calls from residents citywide. And then we are leveraging our greater division that we're under, which has a total of 250 employees to share information.
So for a zone, is there a team allocated to the zone? How many people constitute a team that work that zone?
Sure. On REIS's end, it is 1 zone coordinator. However, we are leveraging our division RSPI's staff as well. So for example, if we have a citywide initiative that we're helping to support recruitment for, not only will REIS staff give out that information, but also members under our division that might be part of, let's say, our resident participation and civic engagement department. So there are 15 zone coordinators at REIS. There is a central office operation at REIS, which consists of an information line that's operated by a staff of 4. REIS's headcount is about 55, but we are also able to leverage our staff of our entire division as we need to, which is about 250 staff members at NYCHA.
And that division is a resident engagement division?
Well, we have a name change, so our division name is Resident Services, Partnerships and Initiatives, RSPI.
But under the old name, that would have constituted what?
Oh, the old name was Community Engagement and Partnerships.
Great. I'm going to ask again my favorite person in the whole wide world, Mr. Honan, to get me an organizational chart with the staff breakdown. Thank you. Councilmember De La Rosa? Yeah.
I did have one question. In fiscal 2017, the council secured funding for painting apprenticeship programs at NYCHA. The program trained over 100 NYCHA residents, and the council's fiscal 2024 preliminary budget response called for $8.5 million in fiscal 24 to restore the painter apprenticeship program at NYCHA. Does NYCHA support the council's call to restore the painter apprenticeship program, and has it discussed it with OMB? And do we know how many of those painting apprenticeships are now master painters or continue to work in the trade?
So I'd have to seek assistance from my colleagues, Carrie Ju, and perhaps Brian Honan, on a response.
Yeah. If, so I'll just ask you quickly, could you raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? And if you could just identify yourself and state your title.
Sure, my name is Brian Honan. I'm Senior Vice President for Intergovernmental Relations. So the Painters Apprentice program that we had was very successful, and the council funded it under Speaker Quinn. That's how far away we go back. It is something that was relatively, I would say, I remember we had in the first class, we had over 100 trainees, and I think like over 90% of them made it through the entire class. So I don't have the final numbers on where they are, but we can definitely get you them. But what was good about it is there was a lot of residents who had interest. They signed up, and they found even though it was a program that was very rigorous, but it came with a stipend, which was the most important thing about it. So residents were getting paid while they were learning, and then it led to automatic, not only union placement, but also job placement as well.
Yeah, it seems like a win-win situation, so we'll follow up offline, but I think this is a good one.
Yep, yeah, I think so too. That was really good.
Thank you, Council Member. So what is the Section 3 reporting timeline to HUD for the Public Housing Authority and other recipients of public housing financial assistance? I think he has to.
If you could just raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? And if you could just state your name and your title for the record, that'd be great.
I'm Brad Greenberg. I'm our compliance officer at NYCHA. So it's a great question. So the rule was finalized in September 2020 with a July 2021 compliance date. And HUD originally in 2022 said that the first reporting would be due for NYCHA around spring 2023, but then in December 2022, HUD indefinitely delayed reporting under the new rule, mostly because there's going to be a new system in place for us to deliver that reporting to HUD, a new portal that is not ready for public housing authorities yet. So right now, and they've delayed it indefinitely and said that they'll notify PHAs with a new time frame for when to start reporting, and we haven't gotten that from HUD yet, so we don't know actually when we're going to be starting reporting under the new rule to HUD.
What are you tracking specifically in the meantime?
So we're obligated to still maintain records, like Sergio talked about. We're obligated to maintain records about our labor hour hire and our hires under the old rule, so both the old rule and the new rule. We have to maintain records around our whether or not we're meeting the benchmarks. We just can't do the reporting to HUD through their system. So we're still obligated to maintain all the information.
How often were you required to report to HUD?
In the past, in the old rule, it was annual.
Annual, okay. So we'll see what the new rule.
It'll be annual in the new rule too. They just haven't set up the portal yet.
Great, thank you. Does NYCHA plan to make their Section 3 data public?
Not a question for me, but I don't know.
Who is the question for? Who can answer the question?
We'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Anybody knows? Maybe the CEO. Okay. We'll circle back on that. Does NYCHA anticipate that HUD will make any new reforms to the Section 3 benchmark requirements?
I don't think so. This was a pretty, like Sergio mentioned earlier, this was a very comprehensive set of reforms that they did in the last rule in 2020. So I wouldn't anticipate too many changes from HUD, but you never know.
Were you consulted? Was NYCHA or any public housing authority consulted prior to the HUD rule change?
Yes, through public notice, we were invited and did provide a response to their proposed new rules in coordination with the city and HPD.
Got it. Thank you. In 2022, was NYCHA in compliance with Section 3's 25% benchmark? And can you provide the council with a breakdown of NYCHA Section 3 hiring or contracting for 22?
As I mentioned before, we're not in a position to report at this point. We're working on that, and we look forward to coming back to the council with that information.
Thank you. Where do Section 3 employees go to file a labor violation complaint? And what is the process for handling such complaints?
It really would, I was talking to Mr. Wells earlier, it would depend on the nature of the complaint. So if it's a complaint regarding underpayment related to prevailing wage, there's folks that you can file that with. There's other types of complaints you can do, obviously, around safety on a construction job. So depending on the nature of the complaint, like always, folks should feel free to report it through our compliance portal. If they have an issue, we can direct people to the right place. And I gave Mr. Wells my number myself, so we are always happy to take a complaint and try to refer people to the right type of investigator, but it does depend on the nature of the complaint that the person has, like any person that works at a NYCHA site.
So you'd recommend tenants, the first place is to go to NYCHA compliance?
No, I mean, if it's a particular resident that's participating in the Section 3 program, they might be able to speak with Reese first, but I'm saying it, in general, the nature of the complaint dictates kind of like who investigates it.
So I can just add to that, the process, if there's a wage issue complaint, is to start with NYCHA's DEO office. Their hotline number is listed on our website, and is also, if in a situation Reese were to be made aware of that resident's complaint, we would route it there, but also encourage that resident to call that number and file there.
Do you have a sense of how many complaints have been filed related to Section 3 anything?
So the prevailing wage complaints that we were speaking about, where we have our DEO office and a prevailing wage unit, the last 4 years we have between 5 and 10 a year.
And have you seen, is there an average time for resolution of those complaints, or?
We can try to put that together, that data, and come back to the council after the hearing. I don't have that with me.
Why do you think a case would take so long since 2016 in the example of Mr. Wells?
That is a good question. I was wondering myself. I don't think in general there is any reason that should happen, particularly because prevailing wage complaints would be raised in the context of an ongoing job with invoicing, and both, we would want to resolve that as quickly as possible. And typically, even a vendor who's involved in that case would want to resolve that as quickly as possible. And therefore, when we look into these numbers that you've requested, I don't expect there to be long kind of duration cases like that.
Great. We look forward to receiving the information to ensure that this is an anomaly and not something that seems to be lingering on for multiple cases. And you mentioned earlier that contractors haven't really been terminated. Have we seen resolution of these cases where residents are made whole?
So my comment was in relation to a contractor that may not be, may not by the end of a contract meet, with best efforts to kind of 25% or 30% benchmarks.
Got it. Got it. But in terms of labor complaints, has there a contract ever been terminated because they did not, they violated an agreement in terms of prevailing wage or anything of that nature?
So I don't have that specific information available, but obviously, we take prevailing wage violations very seriously. And there would be a number of different avenues to address those, as part of the resolution. We can provide more information on that as a follow-up.
Great. And in terms of other forms complaints, you mentioned it depends on the nature of the complaints. Are you seeing other trending complaints happening around Section 3? Or maybe the top 3 that you have seen?
So it's a bit of a difficult question because I'm trying to just make sure I'm thinking through properly when you say complaints related to Section 3. What my colleague Brad was referring to is when we have a Section 3 worker who may be working on a job with us or with a vendor, you know, the different types of complaints that may come up. So we talked about prevailing wage. We talked about maybe they have a complaint around safety, right? Or generally that a vendor is not following you know, DOB rules and regulations around different aspects. And whether that is a Section 3 worker or it's anybody who notices those type of things, we have standardized ways to have those reported, to address them, for them to be investigated by DOI and others if need be. And so those complaints are not specific to that worker being a Section 3 worker, right? I think some of the complaints you've heard today around Section 3 is more around being matched to those job opportunities. And enhancements people think that we can make to maybe make that work better, as we've discussed throughout this hearing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I think what I'm getting at here is to see how we are monitoring the level of complaints that are rising and if there are particular trends that we're seeing as it relates to Section 3 in particular, because we do hear from the council's perspective, right? We hear when things are not working. And so what I'm trying to get at is if it was safety or prevailing wage, if you're seeing a trend of a particular form of complaint that is coming, specifically as it relates to residents who are our primary focus here.
I don't think we're seeing any particular trend. Even the prevailing wage numbers I mentioned are relatively small, in the 5 to 10 per year, given the amount of workers and jobs that we have. I would clarify my earlier comment that, something like prevailing wage, you had asked me if we would take action with the vendor. Obviously, if there's an ongoing investigation, we would be withholding payment to that vendor until it's resolved anyway, right? And so when a prevailing wage case is being investigated, payments related to any issues raised are not made to the vendor during that period. But no, on your question around trends, again, I think the feedback that we're getting is very useful around better communicating Section 3 opportunities, ensuring people have clarity on how the Section 3 requirements interface with the PLA and aspects like that. And around that, we're making a lot of effort to improve our communication where we can, or improve education or other aspects.
Thank you. In terms of, in 2016 and 17, NYCHA reported that virtually all of the workers it hired for repairs qualified under Section 3. And in 2018, as overall hiring jumped, the Section 3 share plummeted to 16% and continued to decline through 2020. How do you explain the drastic decline in Section 3 hires in 2018?
I think that we would need to do that analysis and get back to you.
In terms of, has NYCHA conducted an assessment of whether the Section 3 hiring opportunities have turned into long-term employment opportunities for residents, and whether there were, or were they one-time projects?
So traditionally, our Section 3 reporting has been based on the particular placement, not retention over time. However, with that said, anecdotally, we know that residents have been able to secure various Section 3 opportunities. Some of those have been able to transfer those opportunities into a career. So as my colleague referenced, that may mean a vendor or developer partner then sponsoring a resident into a union, which obviously then provides a longer career trajectory. Where we are tracking retention is through direct training programs that we administer. So again, through the NRTA is a place where we would track retention for up to 1 year for the placements that are on the construction side of the house and for any NYCHA direct hires, such as through our janitorial or pest control training program. In program year 11 of the NRTA, for example, 63% of the graduates that were placed were still employed at the 12-month mark.
That's great. It would be really helpful to know if beyond a year's time, like what you see over the trajectory. Obviously, I know it's a labor intensive, but an important one around all workforce programming and placement. And also potentially, I think that what you heard from the resident here, which I've heard from residents across New York City, is they often feel like the jobs are very temporary. They're employed for 3-5 months, and then they're gone, and they don't see other opportunities. So we'd like to see broader assessment on retention.
Thank you for that comment. I would just add to that this is why we want to be doing more ample, expansive resident economic opportunity programming that prioritizes and focuses on Section 3, but also sits outside of that. Because Section 3 is contract to contract, but here there is an opportunity to build, whether it's a construction trades career or whether it's a career on the administrative side of the affordable housing industry, or even if it's a career in areas where NYCHA is not often contracting, such as healthcare. So Section 3, of course, is important, and we need to focus on that. But our intention around REASE and resident programming is that we have a more expansive set of industries that we're looking at, so that for those who do want long-term opportunities, there is an opportunity to connect them.
Yeah, thank you for that. And in terms of, with the rule change for, with the HUD rule change, what percentage of the Section 3 hires are public housing residents? Do you know that, given that it removed the residency tracking and expanded it?
So under the new rule, 25% of labor hours should go to Section 3 workers, and 5% should go to targeted Section 3 workers. NYCHA public housing and NYCHA Section 8 residents are now considered within that 5% of targeted Section 3 worker.
Right, and I guess we don't have the data on that, so to be determined. In terms of how has the new definition of Section 3 hire impacted NYCHA's ability to recruit people for Section 3 jobs?
The new rule definition in terms of targeted Section 3 workers has provided us with an opportunity to expand access to our NYCHA Section 8 portfolio of residents. These residents were always able to access services through REASE and its partners, and for sure were considered a Section 3 resident under the old rule definition. However, their priority status under the old rule was at a third tier, whereas under the new rule for targeted Section 3 workers, they are included as equal in priority status to NYCHA public housing residents.
Got it. In terms of excuse me. For the record, could you tell us, do contractors receive any benefit or incentives for hiring Section 3 workers?
No particular incentives for hiring Section 3 workers. We have now incorporated within our RFP process a diversity points associated with a diversity goal plan in regards to MWBE and Section 3. So in that sense, they are being there is a criteria advantage in their submittals to an RFP.
Has that always been the case, or is that a new?
No, that's a new implementation in this last year.
Got it. And is there going to be a back-end requirement that the project end with the same number it started with?
That's correct, and that's part of the challenge in the reporting of new contracts is that it's the commitment is actually measured at the tail end of a contract term. With the new e-comply system, we'll be able to constantly be reporting back to the vendors where their commitments are, so that we're not waiting until the tail end of a contract to see that they've met the requirements. I hope that explains your question.
So there will be reporting at the end of the contract.
Well, at the end of the contract and then contemporaneously with the performance of the contract.
Great, because there's definitely, I've heard many anecdotes of residents thinking that contractors will fill out and meet the REASE requirements or the diversity requirements and then are let go midway, and that there is no recourse. That is a consistent anecdote I've heard out in the community.
The level of accountability and compliance that the system will provide, I think, will be very clear to the vendor community exactly what their expectations are under this program, and we look forward to that.
Got it. And beyond weighted, there is no incentive, no bonus?
No, Chair, the much of our contracting when it comes to construction and things of that nature is under sealed bid. So it's very clear specifications, and then it's a matter of price and deliverables. But within RFP, we have a significant more amount of flexibility in establishing the criteria for review. And we've employed that.
Yeah, and just for clarity, we heard in your testimony earlier that RAD Pact, we just want to be sure, RAD Pact conversions are not exempt from Section 3. Is that correct?
That's right. The RAD notice, the HUD RAD notice, that is basically the program rules for RAD, establishes that the requirement that any work, which is a capitalized term in the RAD notice, which is basically the construction work that's associated with the RAD program, is subject to Section 3.
Yeah, can you speak a little closer to the mic?
Yeah. The HUD RAD notice establishes that any work, which is essentially the construction work that is made possible by the RAD conversion, is subject to Section 3.
Will RAD Pact conversions, do they participate in providing job opportunities beyond the construction work to NYCHA tenants?
Yeah, they do. I think in addition to what the HUD requirements are for just Section 3 compliance, especially with the change to labor rules and away from the hiring focus of Section 3, we do require our PAC partners to provide the same plan, Section 3 and Resident Economic Opportunity Plan, that REASE uses. So there's a focus on that, not just in the labor hour in Section 3 strict compliance, but also hiring opportunities and training opportunities for residents. Hiring opportunities both for construction jobs, but also for long-term jobs.
Will this also apply to, oh my gosh, what's the name of it? The trust.
The trust?
Yes. It's like, what is happening to my brain?
I'll let somebody else answer, but I can't
Allergies.
imagine that we wouldn't apply Section 3 to the trust.
I think for the record, we just want to be clear that this will apply to the trust.
Yes, it will apply to the trust.
Okay, thank you. And I guess with that, we'll be happy to receive the breakdown of the reporting around what it looks like across all the forms of trust RAD and regular section 9. In terms of, would you like to jump in at all? Good. I just wanted to jump to the contractors for a second, where we hear a lot of feedback. So can you tell us, for the record, what are the Section 3 record-keeping requirements for contractors and subcontractors?
Record keeping on their part, or as it relates to them reporting to us?
Yeah, what you're reporting.
So again, once a vendor has submitted their REO and what their commitment is, either from a hiring or a labor hour standpoint, they're required at each point of invoice, again, whether that's monthly or whatever frequency that might be, to provide where in that last period their performance to those goals.
And is the system separate from Maximo, the new system that you're using, or is it integrated?
It is separate. E-Comply, though, when we do implement that, will be integrated into our financial system as well to ensure that there's edits between payment and sufficiency of submission. There is an integration in with eBuilder as well. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, just clarify. Maximo is not a system that we use for vendor management or contract management. The E-Comply implementation will integrate with our systems that relate to vendor and contract management to ensure that we can join up, invoice processing, prevailing wage compliance, Section 3 compliance, and other areas.
And how often does NYCHA audit the records?
Our Office of defer to our compliance officer.
We have a team in compliance that we call a transaction monitoring unit. They have an on-site monitoring program where they routinely try to pull records around Section 3 compliance. They also will start doing that in the capital program. We last year and the year before that and the year before that also pulled a sample of records to see if people were adequately using the then paper-based process and reporting out their labor hour summaries and other elements of the Section 3 program. And so we do that on a relatively routine basis to see if we have gaps in the process.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What was the frequency when you do that?
So we do it every time we go to a site for our on-site monitoring program, which is every 2 to 3 weeks for smaller purchases and micro purchases. We also will start doing it as part of our capital monitoring program, which we'll be rolling out this year. That will be happening also about every month or so. And then every year in the last 3 years, compliance has also done just a very specific Section 3 look, which is to say, okay, let's pull a bunch of contracts across different parts of the authority and see if people are properly reporting their labor hour summaries and see if we see gaps in the process. So we kind of do it in multiple venues.
In terms of that, pull a bunch of contracts, there's 800. What does that mean?
We try to mix it up. So we'll take a couple capital contracts, a couple operations contracts that sit centrally, a couple that sit in the borough. And really what we're testing is we talk to contractors. We also talk to operations staff and capital staff and then also pull the documents from the various systems, and we see if people are actually going through the process correctly or not. So it's less about hitting numbers and more about making sure we see what each person's business process is in different units around Section 3.
Right, it sounds like you probably have a good distribution of contracts, but I think what I'm getting at is it statistically significant to be able to actually find things, or is it wide enough where you just kind of fall through the cracks?
I think our goal is really to see if the business process is working. So that's why we try to look at it from a business standpoint of whether particular units are doing it. I mean, there's other ways also, obviously, at the invoicing stage that we're supposed to be looking at labor hour summary. So there's lots of other folks who look at the documentation in other places. So we want to see if the business process works. That's our perspective in compliance.
We need a longer table.
If you don't mind me adding on that point, as Brad mentioned, obviously from a business process audit perspective, the compliance team comes in, but maybe it's helpful just to understand how this works operationally on a capital contract, right? So when a vendor submits an invoice for work that's done in the last month, the first round of review of that invoice is by a field staff member or an independent construction manager that we employ who's there at the site every day. So they're verifying, are the folks listed in the invoice? Did they really do the work they did? Did they expend the hours they did? Now, in our system, we know each of those employees is a Section 3 worker or not, right? And so that's established up front. So really, it's a question of, do those labor hours match what we're being billed for? And so our construction management staff take the first pass of that. Because they're on site, they have the best visibility of that. But then the project manager who manages the project does another review of that to ensure that they're comfortable. They're the fundamental contract officer or contract administrator. So they're also making sure that they, as a second layer, believe that the invoice is appropriate, the labor hours are appropriate, the staff listed are appropriate. And then there's another level of checking our payment processing within our own division, as well as our interaction with our central finance function. So just to make it clear, an invoice comes in, there is several levels of quality control, quality assurance that happens within the business unit, and then we have units like Brad's who comes in and says, do we feel that business process itself is robust, and are there any enhancements we can make around that?
Thank you for walking us through that. That is very helpful. Excuse me. In terms of how many active contracts are currently eligible for Section 3?
As I mentioned earlier, I think it's approximately around 800 contracts, but we will be getting you that information, both the distribution as you asked.
Okay, so that's
eligibility.
The 800 potentially is the amount that might be eligible for Section 3.
Well, all contracts are eligible for Section 3. There is no threshold. For reporting, the reporting threshold is 250,000 and above.
Got it. So there'll be a subsection within that 800 that for reporting purposes.
And I can just add to that by stating, as Sean referenced with the FEMA funds and Matt referenced with the developer PAC projects post-construction, NYCHA is also applying, or in the case of FEMA, ensuring that there is a Section 3 trigger there to those allocations. So there are, I think like Sergio said, we'll need to get back with the right number for you, but there are contracts where the dollars that are flowing into it are Section 3 dollars, and therefore it's a Section 3 contract. But then there are also contracts or other opportunities like PACT development work post-construction, in which NYCHA is still applying the spirit of the Section 3 regulation.
Great. And in terms of the, how many would you say, what percentage of the contracts have been audited? I understand that you're doing a random audit sample, but given a scale of 800, how many have been touched by some sort of audit?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I mean, like Sean said, there's many different possible entities that could be auditing it for the program. And also, like Shauna said, it's, some contracts come into the Section 3 universe because of the HUD obligation that based on the source of funds, and the amount of funds being expended, it's a Section 3 contract. Sometimes NYCHA will put Section 3 obligations into the contract even when it's not a HUD obligation, and we're never gonna have to report against it. So it's a kind of hard math problem to do. So we'll have to try to get back to you on that.
Got it.
And Chair, if I can clarify an earlier point, I apologize.
Sure.
Section 3 is applicable to service contracts, not commodity contracts. I want to be very clear.
Say the second half of what you just said. If you could speak closer to the mic.
Oh, I apologize.
No worries.
I don't like my voice much. Section 3 is not applicable to materials contracts. So where I made the statement that it was subject to all contracts, that was incorrect. Subject to services contracts, services that are not professional services as well. A&E is subject to OEO under our policies, but not directly Section 3.
Correction noted.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of, have you ever chosen not to hire a contractor due to noncompliance with Section 3 requirements on the front end, in terms of denying a potential bid?
Not that I'm aware of in my time at NYCHA. I will say that we did just revise our standard procedure around responsibility, and we are currently also revising also our standard procedure around disqualification. And that is in light of all of our policies and our promises within our contracts, to ensure that as we're ensuring compliance, if I may, the way that we've approached procurement re-engineering and our transformation is to really look at things from a policy, practice, outreach, and compliance element. And those two key elements are key in making sure that vendors are responsible. And now we've aligned our standard procedures to ensure that when a vendor has not complied, we are able to effectively hold them accountable to that, and at that point then also have it be an impact to them either on a subsequent proposal that they might submit or whatnot. And those are teeth that I think are definitely key towards effective contract management.
And one thing I'd add to that is what we have done is in a case where there was a Section 3 violation with a contractor, sometimes we would say, okay, we could deny you future contract opportunities, or we might ask you, in this case, we settled with them for a cash payment that would go to Reese for the Clean Energy Academy. So sometimes the way we'll settle a violation we find with Section 3 is to say, okay, you know, you have to basically make it right and put that money towards employment or training opportunities that Reese might have, or programming that Reese might have too. So there's, I think, a lot of different tools in our toolbox to make sure people understand that there's teeth, and we mean it when we say you have to meet the obligation.
So have you used the teeth?
Yeah, that case I'm talking, I mean, the Clean Energy Academy funding came out of a Section 3, partly came out of a Section 3 violation with a contractor where we asked them to pay a certain amount of money towards that program.
I mean, how many times have you had this instance?
I'm not
In the
sure.
last
I think
couple of years.
some of us are too new to know historically. This is something that we've done in the last couple of years, but we do want one of the reasons we want automated reporting and the ability to track compliance so closely on a particular vendor is so that we can start to use that information to either disqualify vendors, like Sergio said, in the future for not meeting their prior obligations, or seek a settlement from them, a monetary settlement. We want there to be teeth to this when we put it in the contract. And so that's the goal of automated reporting. It's the goal of making sure that we have information flowing, that we have in a system that we can pull easily so that before we contract with you again, or if we're in the middle of a contract with you, we want to be able to make sure there's teeth to it. So that's the program we want to build.
Yeah, I'm delighted to hear there's teeth and that they're going to be used, because quite frankly, we haven't seen a lot of that and seen much evidence of it.
I don't think we disagree, but yeah.
Hopefully not, but when we need to, we should.
That I agree with.
Particularly because it's public dollars and the impact on the residents is quite profound. Let me just double check here. Councilmember?
There was a lot of questions in this package, but I do have one question about your definition of quality job. So it says, in April 2021, NYCHA reported that over 2,800 residents have graduated from the Resident Training Academy, with 90% going on to quality jobs. What does NYCHA consider quality jobs?
So in this case, for the Training Academy, employment at NYCHA we view as a quality job. The NRTA is a great pipeline for residents to enter into employment at NYCHA, where they would not only receive a wage, but also receive fringe benefits, such as access to a pension. On the construction side of the house, which is the other part.
Can you tell me the, some of the titles within NYCHA that you've historically placed people in?
Sure. Well, for the NRTA in particular, we're placing individuals into Caretaker J, which is part of our janitorial training program. That is an entry-level title. With our pest control track, we are placing individuals into the city pest control aide title. And after 1 year of appointment as a city pest control aide, if that individual completes about 12 additional hours of training, they are eligible for an exterminator title. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
Say something.
I was. Thank you. So on the construction side of the house, which is the other training cohort that we're generally operating, then more and more that is connecting to union apprenticeship programs, which are also on the job paid with fringe benefits, employment opportunities for residents. And so that would meet our definition of a quality job. I also wanted to correct the record on a good note. It's 163,000 resident email addresses that are part of the Reese biweekly e-newsletter. We've grown it from 50,000, which was, I may have dated myself. So we started there and we've grown it to 163,000 emails. Thank you.
We're glad to hear that. Glad to hear the growth. A ways to go. I'm sorry, Councilmember.
I was gonna ask also about Section 3 placements for residents who live in the community where construction is taking place and how that match sort of occurs. Is that like if you're considering a candidate, is that an eligibility requirement? Like you can say, or a consideration in placement, like they should be working in the community where they live or they have the opportunity to, if they wish to do so?
So if I'm following your question correctly, we're working with NYCHA Public Housing and NYCHA Section 8 residents. Under the new rule, HUD is still outlining priority categories around localities. So there's different funding sources, but generally residents where the work is taking place should be prioritized, but residents of other local developments or other NYCHA residents are also eligible and open to apply. Our practice when Reese is involved in resident sourcing and referrals is to, of course, look first to see where most locally we have residents that are interested and qualified, and direct the contractors who again have their own outreach obligation to do so and to prioritize those individuals. NYCHA also, though, has various and citywide contract type models, which means that one contract may cover multiple developments under the contract, in which case you would see a movement of individuals from various developments or even from various boroughs that might have that priority opportunity.
In the previous question, you talked about some of these entry-level positions like caretaker, pest control, exterminator, et cetera. What are some of the wages, what are the salaries associated with some of these titles for entry-level?
So I can try to pull that up or also pivot to my colleague, Carrie.
Yeah. So just briefly before you begin, could you raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? And if you could just hit the little red button and just identify your name and title for the record, please.
I'm Carrie Jew. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer of NYCHA.
So the question was around entry-level salary wages for some of these entry-level positions. Some that were mentioned is pest control, exterminators. Like, what are the ranges of entry-level salaries for some of these workers?
I don't have all of the salaries offhand. The salary ranges are all governed under civil service law, so we don't have a whole lot of discretion with that, or we don't have any discretion beyond that. But the general salary ranges are competitive.
Okay, it would be great if you could give us sort of a breakdown as a follow-up. We'd just like to take a look to see what it looks like.
Sure, absolutely. Are there any particular titles specifically that you're looking for?
No, I kind of just want to see the spectrum from like entry level, throughout. Like a Section 3 worker would have the potential of elevating, right, to different levels of management. I hope if they make this a long-term career, what do those wages look like in terms after the passage of time, right? What are they entering in when they get to the middle, when they get to the end of their careers? What is the sort of variation in those wages?
Okay, so that's all going to depend on the title that they start in, but I think if we can give you a trajectory of someone who starts in as a caretaker, because those are the candidates who we receive the NRTA referrals, and then they naturally progress upwards to the supervisory positions, and then to supervisory positions that could, or maintenance positions, depending on their own individual skill sets. But perhaps if I give you something like that, that would give you a picture. Otherwise, it's like an extremely wide universe.
No, I could imagine. I just want to kind of just get a sense.
Sure.
I will say we have senior directors at NYCHA who are former NYCHA residents, so it's there's definitely a pathway.
Including me.
Absolutely, and there's actually a vice president of employee engagement who reports to me, who was a NYCHA resident growing up, and her parents still live in NYCHA.
Great, that's good to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that information. I don't know, Chair, if you have.
Yeah, in terms of we know Section 3 jobs tend to be concentrated in the construction trades, which tends to employ men in higher numbers. What are you doing to attract more women into Section 3 jobs?
So I can speak again to data from the NYCHA Resident Training Academy, and we actually have about 39 women that participate in the construction training cohort of the NRTA. Our numbers under janitorial and pest control are also quite large, and I can pull those up. NYCHA is mostly female-headed households, so we do have a really unique opportunity to connect women to industries that might not be traditionally thought of for women in the workforce.
That's great to hear, because that's exactly what I was going to ask, given the demographic. In terms of older seniors in NYCHA housing, how does NYCHA do any kind of enforcement around ageism? And are there any targeted programs to provide offerings for our seniors? And I will add also our disabled community members.
So I can partly answer, but would probably need support in details. So in our division, RSPI, we do have a family partnerships team. They are a staff that is really covering some social service aspects of NYCHA and providing support to NYCHA seniors. There is a grant-funded program, for example, that they administer that happens on a number of NYCHA campuses and provides case management support to seniors. Additionally, we of course have a number of senior centers which are operated by the Department of Aging and intend to work with them closely on services and programming. Specifically,
so I'm talking about specifically employment, not case management support.
Yeah, so specifically for employment, we are are providing the same level of support throughout the age groups to NYCHA residents that are interested in connecting to work opportunities. Generally, that is 18 to 61 years old, but could extend beyond that. And I'll leave that there because I'm trying to see if I have numbers on 60 plus, which I don't have on hand.
Yeah, no, I would just say, I think obviously 60-plus community is vibrant and will probably would like employment opportunities. It may need unique programming, right, to service their particular needs to help create pathways. So love to hear if NYCHA is considering that and how it addresses that. Similarly, with our disabled residents, are there specific programs targeting this community to offer them employment opportunity?
Thank you for the suggestion. We will definitely take that back. I do have more information on women in the NRTA. So for example, for program years 11 and 12, 68% of the total enrollees were women. Again, 39% of that was construction training. 75% of that were enrolled in our pest control training programming, and 71% in our janitorial track were women.
Thank you. Thank you for the breakdown. And just, we're going to wrap it up because I actually have a ton more questions, but I don't want to keep you here all night. Are trainings for the Section 3 jobs held at different developments, and how do you manage, or is there a rotation schedule to make sure that residents are getting equal access across the city? Obviously, there are many developments. How do you manage that?
That's a great question, and it's certainly there can be transportation hurdles. So through the NRTA specifically, I mentioned that it is privately funded. That provider, the Robin Hood Foundation, has generously funded the Academy for 13 years. It also selects the training providers that we worked with based on their past experience with that particular funder and their continued outcomes, their annual outcomes under the NRTA. And so NRTA training programming is happening in downtown Brooklyn, which works out well because the majority of NYCHA residents are Brooklyn. However, of course, we have large amounts of NYCHA residents in other developments as well. In 2022, we operated a expansion of our construction training program under the name Hire NYCHA. And that allowed us to have two construction training cohorts that were actually housed at Hostos Community College, providing a better opportunity in terms of travel for certain Manhattan and Bronx residents. Another way that we try to alleviate travel burden is when we can really include stipends and MetroCard assistance in programming. Through Hire NYCHA, we had the funding to do so through the NYCHA Clean Energy Academy, and that training program model will be hybrid. So Clean Energy Academy will both be online and in person in East Harlem, actually, when it's in person. That particular program, as my colleague Brad mentioned, has some funding coming from our vendor noncompliance issuance, but also is funded through multiple private and state funding sources. With that said, we advocated and were awarded enough dollars so that the NYCHA Clean Energy Academy carries a stipend with it, and which includes, travel assistance for residents.
That's great. We're very excited about the Green Energy Academy and the opportunities that will provide, given where our economy is going and honestly where we need to go if we expect to survive on the planet. In terms of, are residents involved in any way in creating opportunities to meet the needs of residents or outreach at Reese? Like, Do you have a resident advisory board, or is there any opportunity for residents to weigh in on what's being created and responded to?
Sure. Before I add to that, I would just also add for, as my colleague Matt mentions, for our PAC developer partners that are also doing training, those trainings are shorter term typically, certification-based trainings, and those are typically happening on site at those campuses. So just wanted to reference that. And also to add to considerations that we should give around residents that have other needs or disabilities. We do have an active partnership with AHRC, but certainly could grow the support that we provide there by seeking out other partners.
I'm sorry, can you expand? I don't know what
Sure.
AHRC is.
Sure. So AHRC is a nonprofit organization that assists young adults with disabilities with training and employment. And we do have a REASE partnership with them that I failed to mention earlier when you asked about employment support for residents with disabilities.
And your partnership with them offers residents what?
It's centered around connecting them to AHRC-operated trainings in the vocational training sector space, and case management support that that organization provides.
And are they, have they been successful in placing people in employment, or are they simply just a training and then they hand folks off? What?
I would have to get back to you on specific outcomes with AHRC, but generally, we intend to have a rigorous process in selection of our partnerships. These are non-monetary agreements that we have with organizations, but we still want to require and see that they are producing good work. So typically, that starts with a zone partner application process in which we vet certain data that they provide to us, of course, voluntarily, that really speaks to the work that they do and the outcomes that they see and the longevity of their engagement with an individual. And so we certainly seek to partner with organizations that are not only providing the training, but are also providing the employment assistance support and case management support.
Yeah, and the scope of service. I'd imagine one organization, probably a very large community. I'd be curious what their capacity is at the end of the day.
Yes, we do ask on our application about capacity. We also ask about their ability or their commitment to prioritize NYCHA resident slots in their programming.
Got it. Thank you. Lastly, in the resident engagement aspect here, are residents ever brought to the table for contract review compliance? And or I'd like you to review again what the resident engagement process is like when Section 3 arises. I know you said email list, but I just want you to walk through it one more time for the record.
I'll answer a question about the resident engagement with contract compliance, and Mandy's back there. Mr. Martinez, when we were writing our new standard procedure around Section 3, we had a number of resident leaders who participated in a working group that met every week. I think it was a good experience for all of us. Mr. Martinez, I'm sure will confirm that or not. But we do definitely want to make sure that resident voices are heard in the process of setting up our compliance reviews and also our policy writing and procedure writing around the new rule. So we met many, many times every week. Oh, and Brian can talk about the trust.
Never want to miss an opportunity to talk about the trust. So under the trust of the legislation, residents will have an opportunity to be involved with contractor selection from day one. They will be part of the selection committee. And then after that, a quality assurance committee must be set up, if the residents are interested, to make sure that the contractors are meeting the goals that they stated first. So if a contractor comes in and they're asked, how many residents are you going to hire for this job? They say, 10, 20, whatever it is. If they're not meeting that goals, that is something they're going to be called out, publicly. If ultimately if they're not meeting their goals, they can go to the board and ask for that contract to be, reviewed.
Brian, isn't that what should be happening right now?
Well, it is something I think that as an organization we saw that was really important, and it's something that we fought for to make sure that was put in the trust legislation. We do have a new team both at compliance and in capital, and it's something that we've talked to ultimately doing it throughout the organization. But this was something that we knew from day one that we could start.
But for the record, is this the process that the organization is holding across the board, or is that specific to the trust?
Right now, it's specific to the trust. However, I will tell you, just in my experience, that under the team that Sean has built, and that they are involving residents now earlier in the process than ever before. In fact, under his leadership, they've just built out a new team that is dealing with resident leaders, so they're involved with contractors right away. And Sean, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Could I also add that resident participation is a big part of the PAC program, and I think over the past few years we've really increased resident participation. I think a lot due to the encouragement of City Council and other stakeholders. The resident review committees do interview development teams, PAC partners, and are highly involved in the selection process. Section 3 is a part of that review. So I think similar to the trust, that's already happening for the PAC program as well.
So, sorry, there's a few different points were discussed, but we are definitely making enhancements around resident engagement for capital work. That process started a few years ago, and as we've learned what's worked and what hasn't there, we're continuing to improve that. As a standard, residents are involved throughout the capital projects. There are specific points that, for example, Shanna mentioned earlier. Let's say we're moving to construction in a capital project. There are biweekly meetings where the resident leader is invited. If they have concerns around the work or any aspect of the work, they can raise those there so they can be addressed real time rather than after the contract's completed or something like that. For large projects and projects that we procure underneath an RFP method, as Sergio mentioned, where we have more flexibility in how we select the vendor rather than a lowest cost bid method, in particular, like our comprehensive modernization program, we are similarly involving, like the trust model, residents in the selection committee, and from day one through engagement and other ways that they input to the scope of work, the design, and the construction project. Doing that across, the 700 active projects we have today on the capital side, some of which could be, very small items or something in a backroom boiler system or something like that. We don't currently involve residents in something like vendor selection, largely because it's typically a sealed bid procurement in any case, which is a procurement model that's driven by the lowest cost. But as Brian mentioned, we've done a number of other things. The new team he mentioned is what we call property liaisons that focus only on capital projects, and they work with our colleagues on the resident engagement side and REES to provide more continuity of communication to each property and TA leader. So they're similarly organized in a kind of zone model where we have a capital projects property liaison assigned to a number of properties, and their mandate is to go to the property several times a year and discuss issues related to capital planning, capital prioritization, ongoing capital projects, with the property manager and the resident leader to understand what type of concerns or priorities they have and ensure that our project delivery is actually meeting those.
Got it, thank you. And in terms of the developments that don't have TAs, we know quite a few that do not. What does NYCHA do then?
So where we're running a capital project in that kind of context, we would find other ways to engage residents, and even on a standard site where there is a TA leader, we may be asked to join broader resident meetings, present on the projects, field questions, and other ways that we can engage more broadly. Obviously, depending on what we're doing, we're using flyering and signage and other ways to let residents know about what's happening, in particular where there's any impact on the campus or on the property.
Thank you. So I think with that, we'll wrap up and go to public testimony.
Chair, if I may add, I just have information that you asked about the Reese budget. So for fiscal
great,
year
thank you.
23, almost 7 million in PS and about 352,000 in OTPS.
Has that, do you know, has that been consistent over a number of years? And this is just fiscal 23, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
I would need support in doing an analysis to see if that's been consistent, but our head count has been fairly consistent.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for following up on the question.
Thank you to the team from NYCHA. We'll now move on to public testimony. If there are individuals in person who wish to testify and you have not already filled out an appearance card and handed it to the Sergeant at Arms, please do so now. We also encourage anyone who is testifying in person today to also submit their testimony through the council website. We'll start with the first panel. I will call up a group of names. If you could come to the table in the front, we'll go through individually. Katie Rodriguez, Janine Gavins, I believe. My apologies. And Stephanie Clockey as well. If you could come up to the front. After we're done with the in-person testimony, we'll move to the Zoom testimony. Ms. Rodriguez, you can start. We'll be using 3 minutes, and we appreciate if you could stay within the time limit, but obviously you can always submit testimony up to 72 hours after today if there are points you're not able to get to.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for the opportunity on behalf of NYCHA and the Reese program. My journey goes far, but in the end, like my mom always stated, it's not where you
Ms.
start.
Rodriguez, could you just move a little closer to the mic just so we can make sure it catches?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Maybe I should angle it like this? Good? Okay. Sorry, guys. Good morning, and thank you all for the opportunity of being here on behalf of NYCHA and the Reese program. My journey goes far, but in the end, like my mom always stated, it's not where you start, but how you finish. Though my journey is nowhere near finished, I am glad to say mentally and financially, I am happy and comfortable now than before. I would like to say, first, thanks to the New York City Housing Authority for implementing the Reese program, giving individuals as myself the opportunity to work in the construction field. I would also like to thank Ms. Janet Riviera in assisting me with job placement assistance and making sure that my resume and job skills were exactly what I was looking for. Thank you, Ms. Riviera. I would also like to thank the company of JCC for allowing me, the only woman in my crew of construction, to work besides men with no discrimination. Within the few months that I have worked with JCC, JCC has opened my physical ability to do things that I never thought I was capable of. I really do appreciate Chris Hedrick, Peter Karpernitsky, my field supervisors for allowing me on board. Thank you to the Reese program. The Reese program was created to show resilience, and by far I'm a walking testimony. Thank you, NYCHA, Ms. Rivera, Peter, Chris, and the company of JCC.
You can go ahead, Ms. Gavins. Ms. Havins. Oh, my apologies. You can go ahead. And again, if you just hit that button on the mic until the red light comes on and speak into the microphone, that'd be great.
The red light's on? Okay. My name is Janine Havens, and I am the president of IASI, which is Integrative Adolescent Sanctuary, Inc., which began in 2021, sole proprietor of Coco's Holistic Specialties and Apothecary, LLC, initiated in 2020. I wish to contract with NYCHA as we seek to negotiate reinstating the civil and inalienable rights of juveniles for the non-offending parent within the juvenile system. A huge swath of said parents are survivors of DV and become homeless as a result of complications of the emotional battle involved in the juvenile custody cases. IASI seeks to remove all single DV survivors from out of MICA shelters to transfer into initial intake, transitional, and permanent end phase housing. Beginning to end phase housing, safe house-based assistance for single DV survivors. Presently, this system is very broken. Assistance is targeted to family DV survivors, and there is no grant funding for single DV survivors such as myself. I am kind of a hallmark of this whole demographic. Not that I fit into all the different ways that things have happened to individuals such as us, but we're a huge swath that aren't being taken care of. So we are funneled into MICA shelters, which is the acronym for mentally ill, chemically addicted, where everyone are threatened are treated like animals, and extreme predatory behaviors, attacks on us by homicidal, but frequently homicidal schizophrenic individuals. People within this population, we're placed in just right on top of each other. DV survivors are misplaced into such places using disabilities acquired directly as a result of surviving childhood and adult DV. We're being further victimized through such exposure to a homicidal population of extremely mentally ill individuals. So, what's going on? I don't know how much time I have left.
Ms. Haven, your time is up, and we would be happy to receive testimony and follow up with you for further conversation. Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Clockey, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, Committee on Civil Service and Labor Chair De La Rosa, Committee on Public Housing Chair Aviles. My name is Stephanie Clokey. I'm the Director of Career Services for Green City Force, or GCF. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about the importance of resident hiring and Section 3 requirements in NYCHA and low-income housing communities. GCF has been proud and thankful to receive funding from the Council via the Speaker Initiative for a Green Jobs Corps, as well as discretionary support from other Council members, many of whom were here today. For the past 6 years, I have worked at GCF in partnership with NYCHA and NYCHA's Resident Economic Empowerment and Sustainability Team, as well as a citywide range of employers and workforce training partners in order to position 18 to 24-year-old NYCHA residents to qualify and be competitive for Section 3 job opportunities. Green City Force's mission is to train young leaders to power a green and inclusive economy through service. Through our innovative holistic AmeriCorps service learning model, we have trained and prepared over 600 graduates who have gone on to work in various roles in the green economy, including energy efficiency, green infrastructure, urban agriculture, green construction, community health, and zero waste. GCF's inaugural and strongest ongoing partner has been the New York City Housing Authority. In April 2010, GCF began partnership with NYCHA's Reese office to recruit our first cohort of participants. Fast forward 13 years to today, and our partnership has strengthened and continued. We are currently working with our 25th cohort of 60-plus members recruited in partnership with Reese and preparing them for jobs tied to Section 3 opportunities, as well as long-term careers in sustainability. We work across many divisions of NYCHA, but our Reese-specific partnership has included pilot construction training opportunities via NYCHA's Resident Training Academy, design of an energy efficiency career track model under a partnership project with Jobs First NYC, as well as a variety of recruitment initiatives and upskilling opportunities for our graduates following their initial term of service at GCF. The best illustration of why Section 3 is beneficial and why we value our partnership with NYCHA is through the stories of our graduates. Matthew Lahara of Wagner Houses in Manhattan graduated from Green City Force knowing only that he wanted to work with his hands within the sustainability sector. By continuing his career exploration through GCF's social enterprise, he worked on energy efficiency and HVAC retrofits within NYCHA developments. When an opportunity came through Reese to interview for the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Local Number 1, Matthew's experience working on Section 3 projects within NYCHA helped him realize what he wanted to pursue, which is where he is today, a union apprentice. My entire written testimony has been submitted for the council's review. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for all your testimony. I'll call the next panel up. Thank you so much. I'm going to call a group of names. If you could all, again, come up to the table, and we'll go through one by one. Infinite George, Arlene Sano-Henry, or Sano-Henry, my apologies, Jasmine Bird, and Justice Favor. If you could all come up to the table up front. So you can start on the end there, sir.
All right. Good afternoon now. My name is Infinite George, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm a 16-year member of Local 79, and I want to just say this before I finish. Under the current NYCHA plan, PLA, my life has changed. I've been a union construction member for 16 years, born and raised in Queensbridge Houses. I've been living here for over 30 years, and that PLA has given me a clear path to the middle class. I'm proud to still be involved in my neighborhood of Queensbridge. Like I said, where I lived for over 30 years. I work non-union construction, and I know there's still a lot of people from my community that are being exploited due to their upbringing and lack of knowledge of these rights as workers. Union training and attending school for labor. I'm currently in school of SLU, School of Labor and Labor Studies. I understand the rules better that these contractors try to avoid paying marginalized residents of NYCHA their correct wages. It's important that all contractors doing work in NYCHA development be in Section 3 compliance. This helps residents by employing them at a living wage with benefits and a career as opposed to a job. Local 79 has helped change my living conditions for my family that is different between working a union Section 3 job as opposed to a non-union Section 3 job. In conclusion, no one should be exploited in a dangerous NYCHA job. Every NYCHA resident deserves a chance at full employment and a career when the contractor performs work in a development because it has helped me provide better for my family. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Arlene. Well, how you doing? Okay. Hello, I'm Arlene Sano-Henry. I started out my construction career in Section 3 in 2002. I'm in Grant Houses. That's where I did my first contract with Section 3. I've been 21 years Section 3 worker. I've been in housing 28 years, and it bettered my life. It bettered everything about it. You know what I mean? I was struggling before I got to housing. I was struggling. Section 3 helped me, and Local 79 just ensured me that I was doing the right thing. And from then on, ever since then, I've been doing real good. Real good. That's all I want to say. It helped me a lot.
Thank you. Always happy to hear that. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jasmine Bird. I live in Grant Houses. I've been living there all my life for 39 years. I started a program, Section 3, 8 years ago, which led me into the union for Local 79. It's been great for me. It helped me provide for my family, and the benefits include like the health benefit. I'm a diabetic, and it's hard for me to get my supplies. So ever since I've been with Local 79, the benefits gave me that I don't have to pay too much out of my pocket for my device because I'm on an insulin pump, and I have the Dexcom also to control my sugar. Furthermore, the benefits great. We have pension, which would help me provide for in my future when I stop working, and to help benefit my family. And it helps for schooling. Like if you want to go to school, then you have an opportunity to go to school also. But for me, it's been great ever since then, and I will continue to work for Section 3. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for your time. My name is Justice Favor. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnership at the Laborers. I'm a product of NYCHA, born and raised over 40 years, as we all hear. I'm a testimony, I'm a testament that how having a unionized construction job has transformed my life. Chair, I would like to also give you some backgrounds from the union perspective in terms of the young man that was here or any other questions. I have been the Section 3 person on the ground for the past 10 years, working directly throughout the 5 boroughs with NYCHA, working with their REASE program, working with them, whether it was the trust, and just speaking to the experience of what it's like when we talk about uplifting marginalized people. When my grandparents migrated from the South and my grandmother scrubbed floors and my mom battled with drug addiction and, you know, crime ridden in my community, and my friends and family, some that never made it out and some still stuck. When I look back, being a father of 7, I'm about to be a grandfather too, y'all. But, you know, I think about, you know, what has enabled me to propel me to be able to be successful, to achieve higher education and also to achieve, you know, a stable career. And it's been a union, it's been that. And I look at the lives that I'm impacting and the lives that I'm helping to transform by uplifting folks that oftentimes would have been overlooked and marginalized, going to these communities. And currently the NYCHA Trust right now, and as it stands, has enabled that, right? I know there's some areas to improve, but the laborers don't struggle. And you can ask anyone, Local 79 does more than the lion's share of impact. And we're the largest construction union in New York City. We're the most diverse, over 10,000 members, over 85% of women and people of color, over 80% live in New York City, and we continue to be socially and economically entrenched in our community. We stand on the side of many different fights, social fights, things that don't lead to man hours, but we vested because this is our community. And you know, like I said, there's some questions I have specifically for NYCHA. I would have, you know, I expressed that to them, and you know, most notable is the RAD stuff that's really not truly transparent, but I don't want to bash them, you know, being that, you know, we do have a way of communicating with one another, but and I would have loved for you to kind of like extrapolate a lot more with the RAD stuff. So I'll yield my time, thank you. But I'm available with any questions that you need or you would like to know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just have a quick comment first. Thank you all for sharing your stories and experience. Clearly, New York City is a union town, and we are happy to hear that. And, you know, I think I just wanted to say 2 things. Yeah, NYCHA's lucky that I'm chairing this hearing and not Manny Martinez. or possibly you. But we would love to, I would love to follow up because there are many gaps still in the ways we need to pursue and uncover what is happening, because clearly the reporting and the reality are still too far apart, right? And that's what we're trying to bring together. So I'd love to follow up with you some more on RAD, and certainly RAD impact and where the gaps are. And it is your questions and your guidance and the experience of residents, good or bad, that help drive the questions that we are trying to get at here. Because it is a state authority. It is actually not a city agency. It is a state agency that we get to ask questions to, but we need to do this on both levels. So I'd love to follow up with you, and thank you for the work that you've done in Local 79 with our community members. It is so important, and we want to see more of these success stories because it tells us we are going in the right direction. So thank you so much.
And as far as Local 79 concerned, we all are not anomalies up here. You know, we invite anyone to visit us, our training fund, our union meeting, and you know, although we speak for that, but we're not one-offs. You know, many of us that are, you know, that can speak truth to power about coming up in NYCHA and what the union has done for them.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to thank this panel for coming out, and Local 79 for the continued partnership and advocacy across the city. I do have one question. In your opinion, and I'm glad to hear that the partnership with NYCHA is going well, because that's the goal, right? What if there were things that we could do to continue to support access for NYCHA residents? Is there anything in your experience that you could say, changing this or transforming this, or, you know, doing more of this could help more people?
Okay, personally, me feel that if y'all have like a panel that can come out and do, you know, hand to hand or face to face, talk to the residents of housing and let them know what's the benefit of all this, you might can get more people to come out. But if you don't give them the benefits and what's gonna bring for the future for them, they're not gonna come out, because that street money is faster than the process. You know what I mean? So if we go out, foot, walking, talk to the people, we can do this.
Yeah.
They will come out, because they see us making the money and see how we're living, then they're gonna wanna live the same way. But we gotta be one-on-one, you know, we gotta be face-to-face. We can't do the on the wall, put a sign there and say this is that and that. Somebody's gonna rip that off. Then nobody will know nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to go out in the community.
Yeah.
So the one thing I wanted to add, when we speak about retention, retention is important, right? So currently, you look at the current NYCHA PLA, which to me, it works great, right? There's always room for improvement, but it works great. So we bring in a new person that has zero construction experience, whether it's through our apprenticeship program or direct entry. When that NYCHA project and that development finish, that person still has a union book and they can go work for 17 other contractors throughout the city, right? That's currently what it is. You look at some stuff now where the work is being allocated to contractors that are not union friendly, right? That, you know, there's some concerns with some of the wages, and I'm speaking where I'm a little we're a little skeptical about the RAD and PAC stuff in terms of the contractors that some have done it correctly. I don't want to dismiss and forget about those, right? The L&Ms of the world and Monocnocs of the world have done that and unionized those guys. But let's take, you awarded to, you know, most recently a developer was awarded a recent project in Staten Island, right? And if I can mention, I will mention, but they have a track history of not paying, exploiting workers and not paying livable wage. So let's say they go into that area, and let's say they do hire those guys and girls that live in that area. Once the work is done, they rent jumped up because of the money that they made, but now there's no more work to go. Where do those folks go? So that's why the union connection is important, because that's the retention and how they able to sustain the lifestyle that they had. You come in there one time, and they only paying that quote-unquote prevailing wages because they mandated some of those developers. But after that project is done, where do those folks go and work at? So what I will say is, would encourage them to partner with folks that are union friendly though, because that's the retention in construction, right? And I know the gentleman mentioned about 3 months. That's an occupational hazard that exists in the industry. It's unfortunate, right? But construction workers work to get laid off. It's the only job that you work yourself out of a job, right? And that you have weather, you have different reasons on why sometimes there may be a work shortage though. But it's not for everybody, but everybody can do it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I would just say I hear you about the working yourself out of a job. I think what I have seen is that the job continues and the brown workers disappear.
Right, so
that's what we're seeing that is a problem.
So I just want to put some context to that.
Yeah.
There's a degree of some truth to that, but there's different scopes of work that may be, right? So if you look at it, we're laborers, right? So if the labor portion of the work is actually done, right, it's messed up, but there's no need for us at that point. But you may be like a plumber or a carpenter, and your jurisdiction of work is maybe in existence at that time. So that is why you might see them work. So it's nuance, but you're only gonna understand it if you in the industry though, right? Looking outside of it, oftentimes it can confuse you. But it's a lot of nuance to that, and I'm not dismissing what you say. My degree is in labor studies, so I know the history of how black and brown workers have been marginalized, and even in the union world, right? It's no secret to the history. There's a past to that. But to be fair, we have to just put things in context.
100. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I'm gonna call the next panel. I'm gonna call a group of names. If you all could all come up to the table. Manuel Martinez, Darren Hems, I believe. My apologies if I mispronounced your name. And then Shimika Shana could also come up. And if there is anyone else in person who wishes to testify, please fill out an appearance card and hand it to the Sergeant at Arms, and we can have you come up and testify. We always encourage anyone to submit written testimony within 72 hours through the council website. I think we can start with Mr. Martinez and then go down the table if that's all right.
Great, there we go. So sorry. Good afternoon, Honorable Councilmember Velez, Chair, and colleagues. Really grateful to be here and for this opportunity to speak. With regards to Section 3, just would like to preface Section 3 and why it is different in New York City than it is anywhere else in the country. Section 3 has problems working in other places in the country because public housing authorities, 70% of them are less than 1,000 units throughout the country. NYCHA is the only one that's at this level, that's getting this amount of funding. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. So now, the other thing is, for clarity of Section 3, there is no economic threshold for Section 3. That means that if a project that's receiving Section 9 financing, if it's partially funded, the whole project is Section 3, which means that even city or state jobs that happen on NYCHA grounds is a Section 3 project and should be expanded. What's happening now is that those city and state jobs are being obstructed, and those monies are not being redistributed into our communities. I have some numbers here that will patch up some of what NYCHA was discussing. I was in a Section 3 working group with NYCHA in which I was able to get some numbers. So as far as May 2022, there was 75,000 working age, non-disabled residents that were not reporting employment income. And Reese, through their partners, only addressed in 2021, 312 members. And in 2022, May 2022, July 2022, 209 members, residents. We are not making a significant, we're not significantly impacting the population that can be affected by Section 3. And we already seen how well Section 3 and unions work and how much that changed the lives of these households. We also have to understand that Section 9, a large determinant of Section 9 is flat rent and getting as many households to flat rent as possible. When you have 50% of collections at a 500 average rent reaching $1 billion in 2018, that means that if we were able to get more of that population to a flat rent, we will be able to get more money than the government would ever supply any federal subsidy, be it Section 8 or Section 9, just through the rent program. And Section 3 is the path for us to do that. We have issues with the fact that Reese does not have any Section 3 compliance, even though Section 3 is heavily focused in Reese. And Reese does not have the capacity nor the responsibility to make sure that Section 3 is working. What's happening is that these contracts, the contractors are giving a static number, which should be fluctuating with the 30% newly generated hires for legacy contracts and now 25% of labor hours, but they're not doing that. They're saying we need 3 people, and then that would be the number for the entire job. It's 3 people or 5 people. And if you don't have persons who understand that dynamic, then you don't have people challenging that dynamic. Another thing is contractors are telling the community that it has to be 100% union. That is a problem because it doesn't have to be 100% union. The project labor agreement does not mandate that. They spoke about the 48-hour rule here in the project labor agreement, and contractors are the ones who are responsible for the hiring and also the promoting of Section 3 projects. So you have currently right now, NYCHA has, forgive me, not now. In January of 2023, NYCHA had roughly 1,600 contracts at a total value of $12 billion. $6 billion of those $6 billion worth of those contracts, roughly just under 900 contracts, were Section 3, and $4 billion of that are legacy contracts, meaning that you have, it's under Part 135, which is the old regulation. What's significant about that is that under Part 135, there's a 10% subcontracting mandate for Section 3 business concerns. Now, NYCHA went from a 6-page Section 3 business concern list in 2017 to a 62-page Section 3 business concern list, and is still at 0% subcontracting with Section 3 business concerns. That's relevant because these business concerns tend to be from the community or have a understanding of the community's culture because they may come from another public housing state. And so we need to enforce that Section 3 business concerns in our community because they work better with our community. We see a lot of contractors who come into our communities with a lot of members who do not look like us, nor do they respect us. And they are literally walking around with our jobs. The last thing that I also want to mention is the city council's investment into these projects. So in 2016, I know that you spoke of the 100 jobs for the apprenticeships. So now that was $26 million that was given in 2016 by Richie Torres for 100 jobs, for 100 apprenticeships. So that's $260,000 per apprentice. I think that we can expand that and invest that a whole lot better than, you know, $26 million for 100, especially when we got 75,000 people that need employment and training. And so with that, I thank you all for allowing me to speak, and thank you.
Ms. Shana?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Shemeka Shannon, and as most people here, I've lived in NYCHA all my life. I have, over the years, many mediocre jobs, which nothing came out of it, not noteworthy at all. Sorry, my machine went off. One day during the height of the pandemic, I received an email from the Reese program introducing the CHW program. I said, hey, let me give it a try. I trained for the CHW program with LaGuardia Community College for 3 months. After completing the program and receiving my CHW certificate, I got hired as a CHW for NYU Langone in public health for 1 year. While working for NYU, I received many certificates in the health and wellness sector. When the grant-funded program came to an end at NYU, I was hired with HCCI as a CHW supervisor, and recently, as of last month, I got promoted to program manager while supervising 2 supervisors and 10 CHWs with making an annual salary of $80,000 a year. In October of this year, I will receive my bachelor's degree in business administration, and then I will continue to pursue my master's degree. The Reese program has given me a NYCHA residence with only a GED, an opportunity to finally obtain a career, and I'm so thankful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Hems? Oh, my apologies, Mr. Henry. You can go ahead. If you just hit the button right in front of you so the red light is on.
There we go. Thank you. My name is Darren Henry. I'm the enrollment manager with the State University of New York, Brooklyn Educational Opportunity Center. After this, I think we could all go home. Congratulations to you. That was awesome. So I'm the enrollment manager with the State University of New York. We provide tuition-free training for eligible New Yorkers, ESL, medical billing, patient care technician, GED preparation, and we're an official GED test site. We've been working with Reese for as long as I've been here, and I've been here a long time. One of the most defining moments in working with Reese was we were preparing students for the training to be for building maintenance or pest control, and they needed a test prep for the group. That was the weekend of Sandy. The group started that Monday. We had 29 students. 21 attended the class, 17 finished the class, and 14 made it into the academy. So we were very, very proud of that. We've also worked with them as well in recent years. Recently, we were just at the Whitman Houses recruiting for our tuition-free programs as well. And then beginning next month, we will begin in-person activities again with Reese, where we'll go on site and actually help individuals with their applications to the institution. For the last 2 years, obviously the sessions have been on Zoom, but this will give us that face-to-face interaction. Reese has allotted their computer lab for us. So once the session is done, we will actually go through the application process with the individuals and try to get them enrolled in the program. And just to give you a couple of numbers, in 2018, of our 1,082 students enrolled, 18% were NYCHA residents. The number jumped in 2020, and it went up to 1,400 students, of which 20% of those students were NYCHA residents. And we're looking to grow this relationship. Often you don't hear free and university in the same sentence, right? Even when I interviewed here, I was like, okay, I'm not registering this, right? And we want to get this information out to more residents. As one of the individuals said earlier, she said you put the sign up and someone's going to take the sign. And it's maybe for their own use or their own family, but then that does limit someone else. So when she said that, I was like, yeah, we need to be present more on site, face-to-face, grassroots efforts. So I really applauded and reflected on that. And I think if we can do that, we can get more people into our programs. We can accommodate 1,600 students every year. We do OSHA. I heard the individuals talking about their experience in the construction. We do OSHA, security guard training, medical billing and medical assisting, and college prep, which is a CUNY-approved program. So I'm just here to say I've been working with Reese a long time, and it has been a great experience, and the resilience of the students is second to none. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Henry, and I would love to invite you to Red Hook. Okay. So we can do some more outreach, but absolutely we must meet people where they are,
Yes.
and it is not flyers.
Yep.
And it's not even an email.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually on the ground,
On the
boots to the
ground.
ground, talking
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you all for your testimony.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll now move, having no other in-person testimony, to the folks on Zoom. When I call your name, you should be receiving an invite to unmute yourself. So the first name, Ms. Torres, you should be receiving an invite to unmute yourself shortly. Good afternoon, Ms. Torres. You can go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, both chairs, for holding this joint hearing and the importance of what Section 3 means to the residents in public housing. I don't think that people understand the significance and the changes that can be made in a person's life when they feel secure economically. As a person who raised my children alone, unions are precious to me. I am a union person, but when we deal with Section 3, right, that opportunity is not given to the residents from Section 3 and the contracts. Right now, I have a contract going, and Reese is saying, oh, but they have to go through the unions. That's not what the 964 says. And I would love to know how we bridge this bridge between Section 3 and resident associations and know that all residents will be served. And the other, for the two people I spoke about, they needed space. Right now, I have a rental space, a restaurant space in Alfred E. Smith. They should contact Capital, and Capital, because they are residents, should maybe give them an opportunity to rent the restaurant so that they can continue their business with the opportunity of having, you know, a financial backing in terms of having a fair rent, right? And so I say all this to thank you for being on top of issues that are an everyday issue for the residents in public housing, for the leadership. Mr. Martinez, thank you. Mr. Barber, thank you. Both of them have talked about the 964, and you should ask NYCHA what they know about 964 regulations and how that is supposed to be part of Section 9. And so I thank you for your time. Everyone have a good evening. I yield.
Thank you so much, Ms. Torres.
Ms. Blackwell, Diana Blackwell should be receiving an invitation to unmute yourself shortly.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair Vilas and Chair De La Rosa, and the members of the Public Housing Committee and Civil Service and Labor Committees for holding today's oversight hearing on resident hiring and Section 3 requirements. My name is Diana Blackwell, and I am co-chair of the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board's NYCHA Recycling Committee. We appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony today. I would like to comment on the current benefit and great potential of resident-led initiatives and job hires as part of NYCHA's sustainability agenda. NYCHA's sustainability agenda seeks to bring clean energy, waste diversion, and greener infrastructures to its campuses. The agenda has created an opportunity for a double gain by bringing in NYCHA residents to help with a green transition on the campuses they call home. Resident participation in implementing this agenda has and will help the Housing Authority complete its capital projects by instilling a sense of ownership in residents as they actively create positive changes that are sustainable and achieve sustainability at developments like their own. We would like to underscore that today, NYCHA currently contracts with 3 sustainability organizations that are either Section 3 businesses, hire Section 3 employees, or both. First and the largest, Green City Force, who has graduated over 600 local young leaders from low-income housing to train them in solar panel installations, sustainability food systems, and other green careers. Today, their work has positively impacted their lives of over 50,000 NYCHA residents. The second is Inner City Green Team, a resident-owned recycling initiative, employs 5 residents to collect and process NYCHA resident recycles. The small but mighty team has increased recycling participation from 0 to 335 households in only 18 months. They are now recycling an average of 485 pounds of residential recycles per week. And the third is Compost Power, a food waste processing organization now bringing thousands of pounds of hyper-local food scraps composting to over 7 NYCHA campuses, partners with Green City Force to train residents in composting organic waste. The benefit of just 3 programs that employ and engage residents in NYCHA sustainability projects are far more than the completion of a work order. Like many New Yorkers, NYCHA residents they want to participate in recycling, be part of clean energy transition, and live in a healthy environment, including NYCHA residents.
Thank you so much. Your time has expired.
Okay, I will conclude. Just to let you know that this will bring a great impact. The NYCHA SWAB, New York, the Manhattan SWAB, NYCHA Recycling Committee urges council members and city agents to take green jobs hiring into consideration as they review and improve NYCHA Section 3 program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Blackwell. We will absolutely pay attention to that. We agree.
Lastly, we'll have Ms. Karen Blondell, and again, we encourage everyone to submit any written testimony through the council website within 72 hours of this hearing. Ms. Blondell?
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Council Member Alexa Avelez, for having this hearing today. And I want to agree that with Manny Martinez, who I did spend about 8 months in a Section 3 working group with. And there are 75,000 able-bodied residents who don't have work. We have a $500 million job going on in Red Hook, a resiliency job that did not have Section 3 attached, $500 million, and there was no Section 3. That's heartbreaking for my community that now has some residents who apply for ERAP who will not, are having a difficult time and can't pay their rents. The fact that I've held Section 3 jobs in the past, Section 3 allowed me to become a computer-aided drafter and designer back in 2008. I went through the non-traditional employment for women, which is separate from New York City Housing Authority. But from that program, I then went through the Joint Urban Manpower Program, which is a state program. And then I winded up working for NYCHA as a Section 3 engineer assistant. And the importance of that job, it is really important that these opportunities stay open, Council Member, for our residents. And the fact that we had $500 million, and I look out the window and see absolutely very few people from this community working. I've had several young men and women approach me and ask me if I could help them. Some of them went through the apprenticeship, the pre-apprenticeship trainings, and they're still not working. So we've made a lot of great recommendations during the time that I spent with Manny Martinez and Brad Greenberg and others in the working group, but I'm not sure if CCOP has reviewed those findings and if those will be ratified. So I'm asking that CCOP take a look at the suggestions that we made, that New York City Housing Authority looks at it, and that you yourself look at it, Council Member. I think that those were really great points about if a contractor says they can't, that there's no one in the neighborhood trained, then they should have to support the training of those residents in that area. And there were other things that we said in there. So I'll yield my time and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Blondell. Before you leave, can I ask you a question? You have been an incredible champion around Section 3 and employment opportunities for Red Hook residents. For the record, can you tell us what are some of the recommendations that you have in terms of improvements to Reese and just in general?
Well, one of the things is I wanted Reese to better monitor its vendors and partners, whether they were nonprofits in my community or not. A lot of times, the vendors may get money from Reese to hire residents, and then when we ask them to deaggregate the numbers, they may say that they service citywide, when we're really trying to figure out how many people they're servicing in their own geographic location. So specifically, I speak mostly for Red Hook West, Red Hook East, and South Brooklyn, which is Gowanus. And so really knowing, and also having a zone coordinator there. We have a good one there now, Savannah Hoffman, but there were times when the money and the RFPs were going on, we didn't have anybody in that seat for 2 years because the person was a city employee, of course, and they were out sick. And so for a whole year, it took them a year between the person being sick and the replacement to come. And so that was a whole year that we didn't get services in regards to somebody really helping us to get jobs for the young people and the adults in Red Hook.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And thank you for all your work in advocacy. We're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
I believe there's no one else online, and having no other witnesses in person, I'll turn to the chair for a closing statement.
I just want to thank everyone. Thank you to the NYCHA residents who participated and who participated today. Thank you to the NYCHA staff, to the council staff and our teams for this incredible hearing. There is much, obviously, to follow up on, and I think as we've seen with the statement of Mr. Martinez, that there's enormous opportunity that we should be ensuring materializes for NYCHA residents and leveraging our dollars and ensuring that the residents get the support. We should not have 75,000 residents without employment when we have billions of dollars of contracts materializing. So thank you all. With that, we will close the hearing. Yes.